I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Frankfort Plant Board, Tuesday, September 19th, 2023 at 5 o'clock in the community room. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll?
Member DeLong?
Here.
Member Cuban?
Here.
Member Mason?
Here.
Member Schneider?
Here.
Member Denton Mitchell?
Here.
We have a quorum. We're ready to do business. First item is consider approval of the minutes for August 22nd, 2023 special board meeting. Everybody should have those in their packet. I had a chance to review them. Do we have any corrections or changes?
Move approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes adopted. Item 1.2, consider approval of the minutes for August 25th, 2023 special board meeting. Everybody should have those in front. Do we have any discussion or a motion?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes adopted. If I could deviate just a little bit, Kathy said we don't have any public comment under item 5. So under public information, if it'd be all right at this point with everybody, I'd like to introduce Senator Jay Williams from the 20th District. He's here with us tonight, and Senator, if you want to come up and he'd like to maybe say a few words. How you doing, sir?
Thank you very much.
You came a different way.
Yeah, I just want to say hello, come out here. Senator Jay Williams, the funny GDX sign a lot of you probably saw out there. But my background is technology. We've got a new statutory committee on technology. It's going to affect broadband, a lot of things from the state level and those that deal with the state level. So I'm here mostly to listen, want to say hello, meet everybody. I also grew up as the son of a civil engineer, so water and sewer were what put me through college, and I have a healthy respect for everybody who provides those unseen things under our feet that we just all take for granted, but really provide the basis of our civilization. So thank you all for what you do.
Thank you for being here tonight. You're welcome anytime. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Senator. Okay, going back to the regular agenda, under action items, action item number 2.1, consider accepting the financial statements for the month ending August 31st, 2023. Mr. Denton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Cuba, members of the board. Tonight, what we have for you, financial statements starting on page 29. So this is the second month of our fiscal year 2024. What we have in your board packet tonight is we have a statement of net position, the cash and investment schedule, the statement of cash flows, a debt schedule, statement of revenue, expenses, and change in net position for all 3 divisions and all of our admin departments, and also check registers for 2 of our most active checking accounts for you to check out tonight. I'd like to start on page 29 and just briefly talk about the statement of net position. There's not a whole lot of change between July and August of this year. I would like to start looking at line 60. You can see as of August 31st, 2023, the plant board had $231.4 million in assets. You can see our largest asset category being property, plant, and equipment at just under $141 million. You'll notice this is one of the more highlights of the balance sheet is looking at line 45 on that property, plant, and equipment. You can see year over year, the increase in assets and net depreciation is about $10.2 million. So we have taken a lot of the net revenue we have and put that back into the infrastructure of the company to keep things moving for all 3 divisions. So that speaks well to how we're using our money. We've talked about it a lot, how the rates that we collect from our customer owners, go to our operating expenses, to invest in infrastructure, to pay down debt on infrastructure, and also to save money for a rainy day and to keep our bond rating up. So that speaks well to how we're using those funds. Looking at liabilities on 125, you can see we're just under 107 million in liabilities. So you take your assets minus liabilities, you can see there on line 145. The total net position of the company is 124.6 million, bringing your total liabilities and net position to 231.4 million, equal to your assets. So I'd like to move over and look briefly at the financial performance of the company through the first 2 months. So I'm looking at page 34 on the company-wide statement of revenues, expenses, and change in net position for the whole company. You'll notice there I'm looking at the third column. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're performing for the year. You'll notice when you look at budget to actual that we're outperforming in both revenue and expenses for the year. So I'd like to pivot and look a little bit of year over year or actual to actual. Pretty much looking at revenue, the electric and telecom divisions are essentially flat. With our water division being a little bit below actual, that's kind of being led a little bit by our commercial, residential, and wholesale. We just have usage below what we saw last year. Looking at expenses, we are about 8% year-over-year increase, but almost 100% of that is an increase in wholesale power costs. So when you take out wholesale power, we're hanging very tight to where we were a year ago, which is good considering the inflationary environment we've been in. That's a quick summary of where we are. I'd like to give a little update on the audit. As you know, the statutes that form the plant board require a external audit every year. The board has retained Blue & Company. Things have been going well. We are all to the end of it except for one new GASB Statement 96. It's the subscription-based IT arrangements. It's new for us, and as you all know, we have a lot of software subscriptions. So we're working through that. We expect to have the draft the first week of October. We'll go through that, make sure we're all on the same page. So it'll probably be the November meeting before we actually have the presentation of the draft to you all for approval. But that's where we are through the first 2 months of the year.
Do we have any questions for David? If not, do we have a motion to accept the financials?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Financials adopted. Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Next is conduct public hearing regarding purpose standards. Mr. Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have actually two public hearings that are back-to-back. There's an introductory script for both of those. In the instance of time, I will go ahead and this script applies to both hearings.
You don't read them twice?
No, you don't
Okay.
do it twice. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, sir.
Hearing will come to order. My name is John Snyder.
My name is John Snyder, and I've been requested by the board to conduct these hearings. With me today are board members and staff of the Frankfurt Electric Water Plant Board. We are here for two purposes today, and we'll have two separate hearings. One is to receive oral written comments and consider the purpose standards set forth in 16 U.S.C. Section 162 D1 through 21. These public hearings were the other reason is to we're going to receive comments regarding establishing rates for a new business tier of next band service. Both of these public hearings were advertised in accordance with the regulations for public notification and appeared in the weekend September 9th, 10th, 2023 edition of the State Journal. To conduct this hearing in organized fashion, we've asked that anyone wishing to comment register via email with Kathy Poe or Kathy Lindsay. This hearing will be conducted informally and voluntarily by the Frankfurt Electric Water Plant Board to accept comments on the above items. Both the oral and written comments will be accepted. Any and all persons present who wish to make a statement will be allotted an opportunity to do so. If you have a written statement to accompany your oral presentation, a copy of the written statement should be provided to the board prior to your presentation, and oral presentation should be limited to no more than 3 minutes. If necessary, I will interrupt and request the presentation to be completed. Due to this time limit, I or any member of the board may ask questions of any person presenting oral comments where it's necessary to clarify the nature or substance of the comments. The board reserves the right to answer questions at a later date, and it is the job of the board to fully consider various points of view and information. We do want public input and involvement, and I hope you do not find our standard procedures to be restrictive. For both of these subject matters, additional oral and written comments will be accepted and considered if they are submitted no later than the end of normal business hours on October 16th, 2023. To submit a comment, please contact FPB at 352-4372 or on our website at www.fpb.cc. So we will start with our first subject today, the federal purpose standards, and I'm going to turn it over, before we hear any public comment, I'm going to turn it over to Travis McCullough for a discussion.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Regarding the purpose standards, the standards we're here to discuss this evening are of the shall consider variety, so nothing the board specifically has to take action on other than you have to take them into consideration. I'll start off with, we're going to kind of start with the present day, the newest revision of the standards, and then kind of work back in time a little bit. So PURPA, established in 1978 as part of the National Energy Act, with intent to conserve energy supplied by electric utilities and optimize efficiency. The IIJA of 2021 added 2 new standards related to demand response, and EV charging programs. We're obligated to consider the standards and determine whether or not to adopt the two new proposed standards. And at the bottom there, the obligation of the board includes requirement that determination as to the appropriateness of the particular standard take place after public notice and hearing. So that's, again, while we're here this evening discussing PURPA, to have the public hearing. The board has until November 15th of this year to decide whether or not to adopt the regulatory standard. So at a later meeting, perhaps October, we'll be back to the board to ask for a vote on the matter. So again, the two new standards in the IIJA are demand response. Basically, in summary, each electric utility shall promote the use of demand response and demand flexibility practices for commercial, residential, and industrial customers to reduce electricity consumption during peak periods. And then the other standard is EV charging. The intent there is to promote affordable and equitable EV charging options, improve customer experience associated with EV charging, accelerate third-party investment, and set appropriate recovery for the marginal cost of delivering electricity to EVs and EV charging infrastructure. Okay, so those are the two new ones. When we did the rate design cost of service study back earlier this year, we kind of took a first stab at these new PURPA standards. We asked 1898 to take a look at them with us and make some recommendations. So this was directly from their presentation back in, I think it was in May when we had the original long presentation. So some options the board may want to consider on demand response would be a residential load control program. Lots of utilities over the years have done these. You put a gadget on the side of your house, it can cycle your AC or other appliances. A time of use rate, we do not have a time of use rate currently. Commercial or industrial demand response programs, those can be wide ranging. We would probably have to look into that one a little more detail to try and nail down exactly what that would look like. And a coincident peak rate class, so designing basically a specific rate that incentivizes customers to not use power on peak at our coincident peak time. For EV charging, the recommendations are, again, time of use rates, a make-ready infrastructure program, or a cost-based rate design. So again, those are the two main ones we'll really need to consider kind of over tonight and next month or whenever we decide to take action on them. There's obviously a few directions we could approach this from. My initial thought was a time of use rate is probably the easiest place to start if the board wants to consider that. Again, these are shall consider. I don't think the board is in a position you have to do anything. But it's kind of low-hanging fruit. It's an easy thing to do. We just did a cost of service study and rate design, so all that data is fresh. Time of use rates don't require any gadgets or anything that we have to be dependent on supply chain. That's gotten better, but always going to be a risk of these types of programs. So again, happy to take the public and board's input. That was kind of my initial opinion, is that would be the easiest place to begin, would be a voluntary time of use rate.
Yes.
Again, mandatory time of use rates can be quite difficult to implement. They're often unpopular, probably unnecessary for us at this time. I did talk to Craig a little bit about this. We've passed ideas back and forth, so we've kind of laid the groundwork if the board wanted to go back to 1898 and it would be a new statement of work, but essentially amending that cost of service study to kind of continue on to develop a voluntary time of use rate. So again, not taking action on that tonight, but just maybe something to consider.
Travis, is there much, I've got a couple questions first off.
Sure.
Number one, the AMI meters we're going to, is that going to have any benefit to us in establishing any of these standards, or is that going to be helpful to us in making sure this goes through?
It will, yeah. If you wanted to be on the time of use program, you would
Almost
say you have to have
AMI.
an AMI meter. Yeah. So, and we're not fully deployed.
Right. But we're getting there.
If it's a low take rate type of program, you know, not a big fear. We probably got enough meters in inventory. The number of customers that would want it, we could probably take care of it. But yes, yeah, you would need an AMI meter.
Would need an AMI
so if we were to do it system-wide, we would need to delay that till then.
Till the AMI, okay. The second thing is the the limiters.
Yep.
Again, that would be a any of these things we're going to do in this area, we have kind of talked about that it would all be voluntary, it would not be mandatory at any consideration.
Right.
Is that something we've ever done? I mean, what kind of an issue, what would that be like? And would that be beneficial to folks, especially during the peak summer times and those sorts of things?
Yeah, the way they usually work is, again, the utility puts some kind of gadget on the side of your house that cycles your AC, your other appliances on and off. Most of them do like a flat rate discount. If you let us put this on your house, we'll give you, just throw a number out, $20 a month off your bill for June, July, August, and of course we'd have to look at all the details,
Right.
but something to that effect.
Right.
Census makes one, so we could make use of our existing
Use
AMI
AMI.
network. We
Good.
wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel on getting that data back. That's a big one. You want to be able to have the two-way communication with it, because you can always have one that
You need to turn
disconnects it.
right.
Yeah, you need to know
Right.
that it's working,
Right.
basically,
Okay.
in short.
Okay.
So that is something that, again, the supply chain issue, we've ran into it on meters, but that's getting better. I think if that's something the board wanted to do.
But the time of use rate is something we could do without any additional, as long as we get the meters set up, the MI meters set up, that's something we can do without additional hardware, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
John, you had a question?
Yeah, I mean, my question was, I remember, where Steve, I used to live and where Steve is, at one point I know KU put things on like air conditioners that
Right.
would allow them like peak times to shut it off for a while.
Yep.
So if I'm a homeowner and I decide I want to do the voluntary time of use,
Right.
for someone watching this, just what would that mean? For me, is like, I get off work for state government at 4:30, I'm in the car, what does that mean for a time of use?
Sure. Most of them are set up. You can find any flavor you like, but basically you're going to look at minimum an on-peak and an off-peak rate. So for residential, it would vary your regular energy rate, your kWh rate. So during off-peak hours, during the summer, in the morning, overnight, those would be off-peak hours. You would pay a reduced kWh rate for those hours.
Would I be limited to how much power I could pull at that off-peak rate, or?
Generally, no. You would just pay more. So
Okay.
between 3 and 7 p.m., you're going to pay. If you look at California, where these rates are really popular, widespread, it could be 3, 4, 5 times your regular rate during peak hours or more. So they can get, our regular residential rate is kind of just under 10 cents. Some time of use rates, you're 50, 60. I mean, it's a huge jump. I don't think that would be necessary for us, but you would want to set an appropriate gap where it actually incentivizes something people are going to notice during that peak hour. So during the summer, 3 to 7 p.m., say somewhere in that range. During
So
the
the
winter,
incentive is not to come home, use the stove, turn on the dryer,
right?
not crank the air conditioner down to
Exactly. Yeah.
68 degrees, yeah.
And that's the tie-in as well with the EV charging. If you got an EV, you charge at home.
You
there's
want
a
it
big
done
incentive to
overnight, yeah.
delay it.
And not plug it in until after.
Right, yeah. I think some of the chargers now you can probably program or use an
Right.
app on your phone. You set it up to kick on at a certain time. But yes, there'd be a lot of savings to wait till off-peak hours.
Ms. Cuban,
Yeah.
actually, if someone charges their car, for example, you charge one time, can put 100 kilowatt in a car one night, you could see some benefit. For example, you pay high to 3 to 7, but then you say 12 to 6, you can pay really low.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you average day, you only use 30, but at night when you have EV charge, you may use 60 or 100. You gain, you lose,
Right.
then you overall benefit may be better for customers.
Yeah.
So when you do volunteer, nothing occurred, if
for
they
the-
can say it, yes.
But for this to be a true incentive program, that high rate during the peak hours, that would have to be paired with some sort of an off rate where there's a discounted rate, so that people
yeah.
can have a choice. So that's good. Catherine, Steve, Jason, do y'all have any questions?
Going back to your comment about that, raising the peak hour rate to something that's higher sort of disadvantages people that don't have money to pay the rate. So any rate structure on that has to accommodate, in my opinion, that Cause they're gonna use the power when they need to
When
use
they
it.
have to,
Yeah.
So,
And those would be people, if it's voluntary, that just would not want to sign up for the program
yeah.
Right.
to
Yeah.
keep the, where they can use,
Yeah.
where they keep the lower
I mean,
rate all the
this is
time.
all gonna be voluntary, so,
well,
yeah.
okay.
So
Yeah.
otherwise, you know, so if you don't sign up for this program,
Okay.
you pay the same
Same
10
thing.
cents a
Okay.
kilowatt hour
Yeah.
that you do the whole time, so.
Yeah, there's certainly going to be people that just, they don't have any choice. Yeah,
Right.
So that's, you know,
Right.
to your point.
And it's gonna be particularly in addition to like electric vehicles and, you know, if you can do, you know, run your dishwasher overnight and stuff, you know,
Sure.
if you've got, if you have that ability to, you know, it might be something you wanna take advantage of, so.
Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't want to mislead. We seem to be a consensus at this point that should we take action, it would be voluntary.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
doesn't
yes,
mean
oh,
in
no,
the
no.
future
I think the entire time we've
That
always talked about this
it
is,
could be
well, right now it's
mandatory.
voluntary, but, you know, but that, I think that would be so far down the road. I mean, I can't imagine that being
I mean,
within the next,
We would
know.
hope that first we'd get all the AMI in,
Yeah.
everybody would get used to it, the ones
Right.
that want to voluntarily take,
yeah.
and have more local data about it, so
Right.
that we know whether we really should go mandatory or not.
But I think for the reason Steve mentioned, I would be very, very hesitant myself to ever go mandatory unless we were absolutely
Well,
had to. To me, it's okay as a voluntary program, but I would have some real issues about a mandatory.
and I agree with you, but you know we're going there, because we start, we'll get there, whether it's 5 years or 20 years, you'll
Yeah,
get there.
right.
And all I'm saying is that, I'm sure in California that issue had to be taken into consideration when they went mandatory.
Yeah.
Yep.
If we have AMI, if a person has control over their, with AMI, is time of use voluntary even necessary?
I guess it would be an incentive if you can manage it well. Yes,
Yeah.
it would be a benefit.
Yeah,
I don't know how necessary it would or wouldn't be, but I think it would be a benefit to the
because
customers.
AMI gives a person a lot of options to manage their,
Yeah, you're already going to be
Utility.
informed if
Yeah.
you choose to do the research. Which
I mean, you look at your phone, all of a sudden that wheel's flying real fast.
right, exactly. Yeah.
You might say, I need to turn the air
Yeah.
conditioner. So,
Yeah, so there's always benefit to conserve.
Yeah.
I think this just would kind of make it even more so. Yeah.
I mean, this is just really simplistic, but that's the way I look at technology.
Yeah.
Would there be a way on the AMI to alert somebody if all of a sudden they started using a whole lot of power? Just like you get a ding when you get a text?
There would be. I think IT has been working on that, so that's kind of in progress. There's also a tie-in with if the board wanted to do prepay down the road, it'd be kind of the same concept. I'm going to put $100 on my account,
Yeah.
and once my AMI meter knows that I'm at $100, it's going to start sending me alerts.
Yeah.
Ms. Cuba,
Yes, sir.
actually, there's a very valuable for water.
Yeah.
If they say water leak, they didn't know,
Right.
then we saw it, then they can get a tax information real time, very quickly.
Right.
That's a valuable, I think.
Very much
Yes.
so.
Ms. Cuba, there's another part I want you to say. There are a lot of utility adopt a time date rate.
Mhm.
Actually, the link of a net meter policy.
Okay.
Their most common use is for any new application for solar using that meter policy, like in California or many states, they require them must be used.
So if you're going to do net
Must be
metering with home
used
solar,
time-of-day
you would
rate.
have to use
Yes,
time of day rate.
yes.
Okay.
The truth is, California Public Utility Demand Request,
Okay.
anyone have a new solar net meter policy, which is a benefit a lot in California, then they have to use time day rate. That's a requirement.
All right. Okay. Any other questions on this part of it? What about the EV charging? Does anyone have any questions? I mean, we've already got the we provide public chargers.
Correct.
We have a tariff already on those that does have a variable use rate that charges more during peak hours, correct? So,
Indeed, yes, sir.
so, we'll see if we need, so we've kind of already addressed some of those things in our tariffs, so, and Travis, just for everybody's clarification, the other standards in here that start all the way back to 78, which, include, cost of service and all that kind of stuff. We have already included that. We've already considered all of those and take measures to consider all those already. Correct. So we wouldn't necessarily have to revisit any of those in this hearing.
Not necessarily that I'm aware of. We included them in the slides just as a procedural matter, just to
right.
check all the boxes to make sure. If you want, I can run through them real quick. Just to
No,
say.
I think the board's got them. I mean, there's 21 of them, and
Yeah.
there are things like a resource plan, which we've done and will continue to do, and
Right.
all those things, and they're out there, and our board agenda is out there. So if folks want to look at them, where we are, but we have considered those, and we are I just want to make sure everybody's aware that we're compliant with what Purpose got. So
Right, exactly.
yeah. So Kathy, did we receive any public comments on this at all? And has anyone signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. If no other member has any further questions, then I'll go ahead and conclude this hearing. Thank you very much, Travis. Appreciate it, and we look forward to your presentation probably in October. Okay, so just act like I said all of the stuff about procedural matters again. Let the record reflect that, Madam Secretary. And the next hearing is to establish rates for a new business tier of next band service. Public hearing will be started by Harvey Couch. Will give us some information first off. And I think that, like you said, much like the residential rate, I think the business people will like this because it's fast service for less money.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Snyder. We are just proposing to have these tiers match the residential tiers that we're going to ask you guys to approve later tonight, and just again to have a lower entry point for to help encourage folks to move over to the new fiber service. So I think that's pretty much all I've got. That's really it. There's no change to existing rates. We're just adding this new tier.
And does this change? Does it have the same proviso that if you are in an area, if you're getting new service into your area that has the fiber, you have to get the fiber?
I would say that we would interpret the tariff to apply to
all
customers.
of them. Okay,
Yes,
okay, good. I just want to make sure. So we'll make sure people are aware of that. But that's something we need to be doing anyway. And I think when people get it, they're going to be so much happier with it anyway. So, okay, good. Do any members have any questions about this one? This one's fairly cut and dried. Kathy, any comments? Either signed up, no one signed up to speak? All right, might be the easiest public hearing Harvey ever does. That concludes the public hearings. Thank you. And
Thank you,
back
sir.
to you, Mr. Chairman.
Item number 5, Gary, we're still missing a master of ceremony, so you want to take it for,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, we want to have, let me say, the public information.
look at Kathy Lindsay just coming out from the side.
Yes.
Hello. Seems like we were just here, but we're well into September. We've been really busy in our marketing and communications. I will follow up just after what Travis said. I've talked to Travis. We'll be working with him on communicating the purpose standards once we, get that going. We will continue to work with Sharmista and the water department on the service line inventory communications. That's ongoing. Another thing we're working on is with customer service on how best to communicate the new payment options that we have going. And that's going well. We are very excited about marketing the opportunities for this new entry level for Next Band. We think that's going to be a great marketing opportunity for us to bring more people in. Community engagement's been a big thing lately. We've had a lot of opportunities and events that we've been doing and things coming up. Just recently, we had a Frankfurt on Tap presence at the 2nd Street Fall Festival over the weekend. We will be having a Next Band and Next Band Stream presence display at Bourbon on the Banks, which is happening on October 7th. I don't know if any of you all are going, but we will have a tent there with TVs and showing people how Next Band works. It'll be running on Next Band, and it'll be running on Next Band Stream. Customer Appreciation Day, we have a day set. It will be Friday, October 13th. And we're hoping for great weather because, again, we'll be having it outside and in here. you'll see our display cases out in the lobby. We're going to have them full of all of the stuff from each of our lines of business: electric, water, telecom, and also cable 10 media services. So we're excited about that as we're celebrating our 80th year in business here in Frankfort.
Kathy, what time is that?
We start at 11,
Okay.
and it'll end at 2. We're working with Downtown Frankfort Inc. on a new event that they have this year. It's a thriller Halloween event, and it's downtown on October 28th. We'll have a presence there. That just was decided today, so we're very excited about that. And we'll also be working with them on the annual candlelight event in November, and that's usually a big event for us that we participate in downtown and have a big display, and we hand out light bulbs and things like that. So that's what we have going on for now. If you have any questions, anyone?
Any questions for Kathy?
All right, thank you guys.
You need to be more excited about stuff, Kathy.
I'm
You need-
very
excited. Thank you.
The next one, we have a NOC Operating Center, Darren Rambo, Director.
Good evening. For the Network Operations Center, it looks like in August, we took 2,407 phone calls, and the locators are still busy working large home projects and large projects, lots of development still going on. Working those, we did 673 locates in August, and the NOC took, we've done 1,350 locates so far this year. So, you know, the NOC's busy. We have a new phone system in place, and there's a learning curve with that, but everything else is going well.
How's the locating compared to, you know, like with new construction, new building, new locate? Are we holding? Is it starting to slow down some, or is it staying the same? Or?
No, it's pretty steady. You know, lots of contract work. Obviously, all the fiber projects. It's still summer, so you know, lots of bushes and fences, that sort of thing. But the large projects really probably dominate what we do right now.
Are you still fully staffed?
Yeah, still fully
Yeah.
staffed. Got, you know, four really good locators. Happy to have them, and hope they're here for a long time.
And this is, Mr. Chairman, this is a question I'll also ask when Cassie and them come and talk about customer service. How's the change in our hours where are you guys covering the phones from that 1 to 2? Your dispatch folks covering them?
Yeah.
How's that going? Is that is people?
It's going well.
Good.
Pretty
Good.
much seamless.
Okay.
For us, from our right regard, you know, we see a little bump in phone calls from 1 to 2.
I think a lot of people just hear that and call back later. So
I think they do.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
they do.
Good.
And, you know, the ones we've had, there's really been no issues. So,
Good. Excellent.
That's not been a big deal.
Good.
Any questions for Darren? Any others? Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have a Customer Service Supervisor, April.
Ms. Rhodes.
Gonna lead me right into what I was gonna talk about. So lunch has been great. Like, we have really seen, I don't know, if you all look on page 125, our reports are 125 to 129. Our actual wait times went down this last month compared to the previous month. The previous month, we had wait times for CSR Tier 1 at about 3 minutes, and the Tier 2 about 2.5 minutes, and we're back down to almost the minute for the Tier 1, and then the Tier 3, 2 minutes. And we absolutely could not have done that without the NOC. Really want to express our sincere thanks to them, because they have really stepped up, and it's really been a team effort. So
Good.
kudos to them. As far as everything else going on in customer service, it's been a busy month. Like Kathy said, Paymentus, we launched Paymentus, and so we're working with them to start the advertising. We kind of did a soft launch so that we could make sure that everything was working correctly before we really got out there in front of everybody and advertised it. And so we've gotten the NOC as well as customer service we've learned how to use it, because it is different. And it seems to be going really well, and we're excited about the different payment options that we can now offer to customers. And then the other big project that we have that's ongoing is the phone system. So we did launch that on the night of September 7th. September 8th for customer service. And so like Darren said, you know, we are working through some of the different nuances of this system that maybe weren't in the others, but we really look forward to being able to utilize this system to its best ability and to meet our customers and communicate with them in the way that they want to be communicated with. So we've been working with IT on a daily basis about, you know, different things, and we'll continue to do that. So exciting things ahead for customer service and moving us forward. And so we're really...
How you doing on filling your positions?
We actually had 2 new CSRs start.
Okay.
And so I think that's why the whole, you know, wait time thing was so impressive to me this month, was that in July we were still down, and we're going to have to train. So it's going to be a while before we have them actually up and on their own. But the fact that in July we saw such an increase, and then because we did change the lunch, it did make such an impact. So we appreciate y'all supporting that as well. So, any questions?
for April?
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Chairman, next is our telecommunications superintendent, Adam.
Good evening. Telecom report starts on page 131 of your board package with customer penetrations for the month. Everything looks pretty good there. The outage reports on 132 and 133. We had 5 outages for the month. 3 of them were power supplies. We had 1 damaged piece of cable, and we also had a line extender module that had water in it that had to be replaced. The trouble call on page 134 is pretty much average for the month. I don't know what happened in 2018. That was a bit extreme, but this past month was pretty much average. Next band update. The underground crews are wrapping up in Inverness. They're moving to the Benson Reserve. And one good thing for Darren's crew is hopefully by December we'll be done with our underground as far as putting conduit in the ground. So those contractors are working hard to meet that deadline, so that'll be great. The overhead crews they're working all over the place. We have several small builds that they're doing right now. We recently turned on the last portion of Indian Hills, Bon Air, Country Lane are the areas we just turned on probably the last couple of weeks. So if there's any other questions, I'll be glad
Any
to
questions
answer.
for Adam? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is electrical. We have Scott for the superintendent electric. And Travis, too.
Good evening, everyone. As you turn to page 135 for the electric report, you'll see that our SAIDI number for the month of August is 43.962. On page 136, once again, is our normal pie chart, shows the percentages of the type of outages. And then on page 137, you'll see the actual number of outages per cause of outage. And we had a total of 44 outages for the month of August. And on the last page, you will see that the top 10 outages we had a total of 75 customers affected for the month of August. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Scott?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And to piggyback on Scott, the AMI report, we are at 14,055 electric installs, 9,174 water installs. So again, kind of business as usual. Waiting on that next big shipment of electric meters, but no substantial change to the shipments. We're just kind of, like I said, business as usual, getting a shipment every few months. And I can, if there's no questions on AMI, I can go ahead and cover the SEPA report as well.
Any questions on the AMI? Travis?
Okay, the SEPA report begins on page 139 of your board package. Our SEPA bill for July was $81,878. Our SEPA revenue is $283,059 for the monthly benefit of $201,181. And that brings us, for 2023 through July, a net SEPA benefit of $664,886. So another pretty good month for SEPA, and good year so far.
And what's budgeted, David? How's that running compared to budget?
We are on track so far.
Okay.
John, I have one question.
John?
the sign-on we approved at our last special meeting about the maintenance. That's kind of an ongoing thing, I know. And that's already kind of baked into the numbers, right? That's not necessarily going to reduce what we get out of SEPA for the most part?
No, as far as I know, there's no expectation that it'll change up or down our capacity with SEPA.
Okay.
It's more a necessity to keep it going.
Maintaining the system, yeah. Okay.
Without it, I think several of those hydro plants are well past their life, so without it, I think it's, you're probably looking at a loss, but
I understand.
otherwise,
Okay.
I think
Thank
it'll
you.
change. Yes, sir. Thank
When
you.
you say that, just one other question.
Sure.
Like when you say they're well past their life in the maintenance, at some point, are we looking at like a really big bill or a really big thing, or can they just indefinitely keep patching them, or?
Nothing as far as I know. I mean, the way I understand it is this is gonna, substantially keep them up and running. There are several hydro plants, so they all kind of vary in age. So you, of course, could always look at one that just kind of reaches the end. But
And what is it that eventually fails? The turbines, or?
Yeah, I think that's the big ticket item. The transformers, a lot of those are transformer projects we've seen over the past few months. Those are the two big ones. Gary, do you know? Does that sound accurate to you? I don't know of any major changes.
Yeah, I mean, typically they are fairly low cost.
Yeah.
Even we talk about millions or 100 million, relatively speaking, still it's going to be impacted rate down the road.
Right.
But it's not just us; it's the whole group.
It's
We are a
everybody.
very small portion of it, but still it's a very good deal for very low cost power, and
Right.
And also it's renewable.
Yes. Yes. Sounds good.
Thank you.
For the QMEA report, I really don't have anything new since the last board meeting. The QMEA, we didn't have a meeting. I just had one executive committee meeting, and it went through very well.
Okay.
Yes.
And I just put on the record, I think everybody was aware of it. Gary and I appeared in front of the city commission a couple weeks ago. And
Monday, yes.
And the
Last
meeting went
Monday,
well. It was fairly short. We gave them a copy of the letter we'd sent to KYMEA, the previous letter regarding construction of fossil fuel. We gave them a list of all the current contracts KYME has and their expiration dates, and then a copy of the questions and answers that are on our website. And we really had, I guess, no questions. I mean, it went well, and the mayor had invited us down, we presented that, and so I think everybody's aware of it, but that information's on our website, and it was public, so.
Yeah, and I really appreciate staff putting that on there.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, next is a safety report, JC. Safety.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Safety report starts on page 143 and runs through 144. Happy to report for the month of August, no OSHA recordables. On our vehicle accidents, each line of service did sustain a minor vehicle accident. Again, they were all minor in nature with no injuries sustained and with all FPB vehicles being able to be operable and driven away. Happy to report.
Any damage on any private vehicle or anyone else's? Or?
One, sir, a city parks vehicle sustained.
We hit a city parks vehicle?
Actually, downtown, one of our electric buckets was actually, they were there to assist the parks department with hanging banners. And as the crew stopped to actually retrieve the items and the banners, as they pulled away, one of our toolbox caught one of their headlights. But other than that,
a little duct tape and.
We can take care of it if they like it, sir. We can take care of it.
Okay.
But other than that, no, sir. Everything else was not ours.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Chairman, next is a water distribution. Brian.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members. The water distribution monthly report is on pages 145 through 147. We installed 7 new services. We had 5 main breaks and 6 outages for the month. Besides the normal board report, we're about 80% complete on the Spring Hill Suites, the new 12-inch main installation. That project's going well. We're about 15% complete with the Copperleaf new line installation. We just got started on that this week, so looking forward to getting that completed. The annual flushing program is complete at this time. The Taylor Tot tank painting project, I'll have the change order later in the agenda. But we're looking to get the tank put back in service next week, so everything's going well. Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Chairman, next is our superintendent of water treatment plant, Brandon.
Good evening, everyone. For the month of August, the water treatment plant treated 264,469,000 gallons of water for an average daily production of 8.53 million gallons per day. Lock 4 averaged 1,127 cubic feet per second for an average of 728 million gallons of water. There was 2 inches of rainfall in the watershed for this month. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah.
No chemicals this month?
No.
John?
He almost bowed his head in shame when walking away when he said that. That's right. Well, there's always next month.
Next item, item 6.1, consider approving Stingray Music Extension. Harvey?
Thank you, sir. Staff recommends the approval of the Stingray Music Extension. This is an extension to our current NCTC agreement with the term through June 30th of 2026. Stingray Music is a digital music service that we have on our optional preferred cable tier, 50 channels of commercial-free music in the channel 200 area. They also have a companion app for iOS and Android that allows those customers to access all those channels and more on their mobile devices. There's no rate reset. The rate will remain the same throughout this calendar year, and the annual increases are based on CPI and within our budgeted projections. Assistant Jennifer Administration has reviewed the extension and meets with his approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this item.
So this is one of the rare ones where there's no VOD. There's the app instead. Correct.
Yes, and that's really what we're seeing
Makes
more and
sense,
more
yeah.
of that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any questions for Harvey? Hey, do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approved. Item 6.2, consider approving a new tier of Nextband service for residential customers and update max upload speeds. Harvey?
Thank you, sir. This is the third step of our 3-step process to approve the new tier of Nextband service. We're adding the 300 meg offering on the residential side, and also updating the upload speeds on all 3 of the fiber tiers. We're also updating Section 10 of the tariff to update language on what Mr. Snyder referred to earlier. Customers in those areas that are serviceable by Nextband, they can continue to keep their cable modem service, but new customers will be required to take the fiber service. And we're also updating some of the language and the pricing on the equipment to clarify it on the billing side. We're proposing to make these changes effective October 1st of 2023.
And then you're working, Kathy had mentioned you're working to make customers aware
Yes, sir.
of these options. And
Yeah, we're really going to talk to the folks at 25 megabits on the cable modem side. We have a lot of those people, and we think the 300 meg offering from a pricing standpoint is going to be really close, and we think obviously their performance is going to be way better. So we're going to target those folks initially and continue to spread the word.
do we have any questions, comments? If not, do we have a motion? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approved. Thanks, Harvey. Item 6.3. Leanne Phillips, consider approving FPB's bid requirement to follow KRS 424260.
Good evening. The plant board's procurement policy states that bids are required when a purchase is in excess of $30,000. This amount comes from KRS 424.60. The statute has recently been increased to $40,000. Staff recommends that the procurement policy be changed to follow the KRS instead of listing an amount. This would allow the bidding level to be increased when the KRS is revised.
Any questions, Leanne? Hans, is there anything you?
Follows the statute. it'll kind of automatically, you know, be revised, for lack of a better term, to follow the statute. You don't have to come back to the board
Right.
and ask for a specific amount, so.
Do we have any further questions? If not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's adopted. Item 6.4, consider approval of city-based hardware and software as a service agreement for 3 customer self-service payment kiosks and approve budget amendment to reduce customer service department capital budget by $30,000 and increase department's expense budget by $79,000 for FY24. Mr. Dent?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. If the board will remember, back in March, you approved a new agreement for payment card processing through Paymentus, and that offered us a lot of different ways of payment methods, payment types, and payment channels. And one of those new payment channels was a kiosk. So this is a kiosk system that will work with the Paymentus software and will allow us to process those payments. So we're looking always for ways to improve the customer service experience and also bring efficiency on our side in operations. So what we're proposing and asking the board for is to purchase 3 kiosks, 2 outside units that would be in each of the drive-through lanes at the admin building, and then 1 indoor unit that would be in the administration lobby. So this would allow for cash, check, and payment card, debit, credit card processing 24 hours a day. Of course, outside of business hours, they would go through the drive-through. But we think this is a way to really leverage Paymentus, allow for a 24/7 payment option, and also allow customers to use a debit, credit card in the office, which we don't do today. So we originally budgeted this, it's on page 51 of the 24 budget, as a capital item. It was $30,000. The idea is we were going to start with 1 unit. But since that time, we were down 3 customer service reps. We asked for the hour lunch, which you all graciously granted, and also looking out and talking with the vendor. It's a 4-month lead on from the time you place the order. So looking at it, we believe this is going to work just fine. That we would we would like all 3 to just get to this solution from the start and go ahead and allow, by the time, if the board were to approve this tonight, we're looking in December, January, that we could have plug and play this in and be off and running with this solution. So we're asking to move the $30,000 out of capital budget and into the expense budget, and then increase that amount from 30 to 79. We do have savings already through the first 2 months. We've got customer service positions that haven't been filled, and so we believe the existing budget wouldn't need to be adapted. We need to move from capital to expense up to 79,000, and would take any questions you might have on the solution.
I know the one thing, it was several months ago, either April or Cassie talked about, one of the reasons so many people use the drive-through is they want a receipt.
Mm-hmm.
And this would allow people, if they paid their bills after hours, wherever, use the kiosk, they could get a receipt when they paid their bill.
Yeah. Absolutely. There'll be a receipt that would print out.
Yeah.
With the solution today, we mentioned we're live with Paymentus. We've added, if you go onto our website and go to My Portal and pay online, we now have Google Pay, Apple Pay, PayPal, all the modern payment methods. So this would just add and complement all the different ways that we can offer, and we think I think it's going to be received really well.
The one thing we might, and you probably already considered it, and maybe talk to Darren, if we're going to add this where those kiosks will be open 24/7, I don't know what the lighting is in the drive-through area, but we might want to look at lighting the whole, just adding some additional lighting in there for people who might choose to come in, after hours, after dark.
Sure. We'll look at that, and we've talked with him and JC as well on security of the handling of all this. So we feel like we have a solution for that as well. So.
Any questions for David?
Mr. Chairman, do we need 2 separate motions, or can we make just one?
Hands?
I think you can combine them into one motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the city-based hardware and software service agreement, and as described by Mr. Denton, and also to propose make a motion on the budget amendment to reduce the customer service department capital budget by $30,000, increase the department's expense budget by $79,000 for FY 2024.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. Do we have any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Item 6.5, consider approval of call monitoring and recording policy. Nichelle?
Good evening, Board Chair and members of the board. At the April 18, 2023 FPB Board meeting, the FPB Board of Directors approved moving forward with a new phone system called Genesis Cloud. This new system would allow for more customer self-service options, allow agents to handle calls from any device with internet access, no longer limit the number of calls we can handle at one time, offer multiple ways to engage with customers, and would be capable of call recording. After months of planning and testing, FPB staff has successfully transitioned to Genesis Cloud system with the official go-live date being the evening of September 7, 2023. Since the new phone system is now live, staff is requesting the board consider approval of a call monitoring and recording policy that states the practices regarding these call monitoring and recording practices.
So basically, as Mr. Denton explained it to me, because he explains it to me makes it real simple.
Yes.
We're all used to, when you call in, you hear a recording saying, this call may be recorded for quality and training purposes and so forth.
Correct.
That's basically what we're looking at. We're not taping recording calls going outbound. We're basically, when people are calling in on customer service lines and that, they'll be notified that that call may be recorded for those purposes. Is that correct?
Correct.
There is one exception to that,
Okay.
sir. So all queues, we have 4 main queues that when people call in, it can be the customer service, the network operations center, those dealing directly with broadband, and also out of our telecom department. So inbound calls through the queue will hear that recording, so that kind of satisfies that. We do have a callback option. Those that have called us and say, if you would like a callback, please press. So whenever we call back outbound, those outbound are from the queue and will be recorded. But that is when there is no recording we can put on those outbounds, so the CSR will state that we're on a recorded line. So it will be.
But they've already called into the queue and they've already been warned that it's, so they should understand that.
Yes, sir.
Any conversation with us is gonna be subject to
You're
that.
right,
But-
sir. They would have
but
heard
we are having our CSRs tell them that when they get back on that callback line.
We are going to go this extra step, and
I think
that's
it's
the
good,
policy
yeah.
states that.
Good.
And then we have the acknowledgement form that just, so everyone is, just, we can acknowledge that they actually understand the policy and they're being.
Steve?
Couple questions. Where it says allows agents to handle calls from any device with internet access, what is that? What's the, how broad is that? I mean, is that, can I use my
So
cell
that was
phone?
one of the benefits of switching to this system. It is internet-based. So let me use an example. Let's say
I can tell them right now.
Yeah.
If my LRC phone were to ring right now, I would get a notification on my phone
Okay,
and
well,
I could
yeah,
pick it up
yeah.
on the cell phone. So we use something called Jabber, and it's just a different system, but yeah.
Well, I couple that with the page that talks about employees receiving personal sensitive calls.
Mm-hmm.
How does that happen if it's coming through the queue? How does someone receive a personal call?
Sure.
Coming through the queue?
This, what I believe, was a SHRM, pretty standard SHRM policy that was written. As far as the background or any legal, I believe very rarely, because when the calls come in queue, it's random. So I think this is an edge case that would not happen hardly ever. So it's, if you do have something sensitive, it's stating this is how you would handle it.
Okay. And going back to the first question, what if I'm like John sitting here at this meeting and I'm on call, if you will, and a call comes through the queue to my phone? How is the plan board ensuring that that's a confidential call? I'm sitting here in the midst of people, and I'm talking to a customer with some issues. So how are you ensuring that that's happening?
That is a good, I see that as an edge case as well. Most of the time, the CSRs and those in the queue are at their desk working in office. So, we do, all of us, a lot of business people in this room do work after hours and take calls when that's just the service we provide. So I think it's to the professional responsibility and awareness of the staff member to make sure that we're protecting privacy. So I think it's.
Let me ask you a question. Do any of our CSRs ever do work are they ever allowed to work from home? That's not a class that's allowed to do
Now,
that.
they are technically a class of employees that can, but we do not, they don't today. but they could. Most people find it easier to work here because we have
Understand.
so many systems and you get
Understand.
multiple screens.
Okay.
But we do allow folks, and we have a 2-day policy, and that's been going. But most CSRs work here in the building, so.
So if we have employee who, for whatever reason, when we had COVID, when we have various things, and they're working from home, then in addition to any other guidelines, are employees given the guidelines that if they're working from home, that the confidentiality and security and everything at home, family members, everything else still applies?
You might know, Nichelle, a little bit. We do have the work from home policy, and I'm pretty sure it's pretty clear on how that's to be handled.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't remember it right offhand, but.
Yes, still confidentiality, your workspace should be set up a certain way to avoid distractions, background noise, things of that nature, so yes.
And other non-planning board people being around not to be able to hear a conversation going on.
Yes.
Again, I fully understand that and embrace that, but any device means a portable device, which is a cell phone, which I'm sure you know the pattern of people working at home these days. They're working at home, out in the yard or out at something sometimes. And so there's an increased danger of exposing confidential information because stay-at-home employees sometimes aren't at home even though they're working. And you said any device, so that means they don't have to be home.
Well, the queue to be able to answer a call from a customer that's coming in, they're going to call with a problem, or most of the times it's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with, and they're sitting at their computer. They're dealing with I don't see a case dealing with a queue call in a yard or anything else. So I think it's going to be in a business environment here or abiding by the policy working from home.
And let me ask you another question too. I'm sorry, Steve. do you
No,
have something? Yeah, this phone system, this is FPB's system-wide system, correct?
Yes, sir. This is
So if you guys all have individual extensions as well.
Yes, we do.
So if I wanted to call David Denton and I called your direct line at FPB and you had this on your cell phone and you were down the hall in Gary's office and your phone rang, it's going to ring to your cell phone and you can pick it up when you're in Gary's office.
Yes, sir.
That's where that's really going to be used more than anything.
No, I agree.
And I
but
understand.
I look at the possibilities, not what the
I
norm
understand.
might be.
I understand.
So I get the point.
understand.
I'm just saying
I understand.
the possibility exists, and you all need to be aware and prepared for that.
Sure. And in that case, Mr. Snyder gave, that would not be a recorded call. It's not on a queue call. Line to line does not.
It's not on a queue call.
And how long will recorded calls be retained?
There's a lot of different settings, and I do think we've had it set for we don't want to go out and just burn all kinds of hardware space or cloud space, but I don't have the exact number, but I do know we're going to record them, keep them for a acceptable period of time. This is going to be used. We've not done this before, had the ability to do quality control. So all of the supervisors of the departments that have queues will pull random calls, we'll work on customer service, we'll work on, hopefully you'll see more. I think we're pretty standardized in the way we handle calls, but this allows us to actually implement more of a standard way of holding and doing calls.
John?
Does this system give, say, one of our CSRs gets on a call that they think may be problematic? Is there an option for the CSR or the person that's the queue, the person that's getting that call? Is there a way for the person to flag that to make sure that one gets retained for a different period of time, or do we have procedures for doing that?
I know it's very dynamic. I don't know the exact ability, but I know I'm very certain that we can flag and tag calls. Okay. So it's going to be exhaustive. We found that it's going to be a very valuable tool. There's all kinds of other benefits other than recording, but we'll see those roll out over time.
Okay. Any other questions for David or Nichelle? Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Anything else anybody wants to resolve or, okay? Okay, if not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's policy is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6.6, consider approval of Capitol Plaza substation construction change order to include new substation fence perimeter. Travis? You're back.
I'm back, yes, sir. Good evening again. So the Capitol Plaza substation project, that one's been going on for quite some time, replacing the power transformer there. Basically been an entire substation rebuild, short of one existing power transformer. One item we had not originally accounted for when we were planning the project is fence replacement. That being the reason it's here before you as a change order. We've had some security issues at that substation in particular, so the fence is of concern now where it was not so much so at the beginning of the project. So as a matter of getting it done quickly, we also want to be done with the project. We're kind of getting close to the end where we want to be wrapping it up and getting everything energized. Easy Construction has been on site. They did all the foundation work, all the grading work. Do a really good job. We asked Easy if they could give us a price in a change order to go ahead and take care of the fence as well. They have priced it at $51,520. Again, this is a big ongoing capital project that's in the electric department budget. So with the board's approval, we'd like to approve the change order and ask them to get the fence replaced for us.
And does this pretty much wrap up the project?
We'll be very near to the end. So most of the foundation work is done. Most of their portion will be done. After that, we'll have to go in, put the steel up, and then re-energize the other bay. So if you've driven by there recently, there's one kind of vacant bay.
Right.
They've done all the concrete work there. We'll put the steel up and get it energized, and we should be good to go. Should be done there.
Okay. Catherine?
So it shows in the agenda over $740,000 for the remainder of the project.
Correct.
Left in the budget for the remainder of the project.
Correct.
And this is a $51,000 item.
That's correct, yes.
Are you saying that $700,000 isn't going to be used or is yet to be charged?
So the total budget from now until the end of the year will have, there's other work to be done, including this $51,000. They'll have another invoice, maybe two more on the foundation work from EZ. We've still got to do the final relay testing and commissioning, so kind of the more engineering heavy side of it will still have to be done. And we've already spent some of these funds as well. So the total budget amount, what's actual remaining is going to be less than that. And I did not check that exact number, but
Do you think we'll be under budget?
I think we're going to be okay on budget. We'll have to kind of watch it as it goes on. This being, again, it's somewhat unexpected expense, but as of right now, everything we know, I think we're okay.
And you're coordinating with Darren for some of the same measures we took for our other substation. They had to do the same things there for security and so forth?
Indeed, we did. We visited, this was one of the sites we visited with Darren, some of the outside expertise we got. So we walked that site. Yep.
Yeah. Steve?
So the items that Darren put in his budget, I assume it was for this station too.
Yes,
in this year's budget, in his budget.
Right, not this fence specifically, but
No,
yes,
yeah.
addressing the station.
So there's no other change orders addressing any surveillance, security stuff that Darren would have in this $50,000?
No, unless there would be something new or unexpected. I mean, we had already planned on addressing it. That site actually already has cameras on the old system. We were going to replace them as part of this, the budgeted security improvements. So there are some cameras there. We planned on putting more in and getting everything kind of on the whole new system. But I don't expect that budget item to have to be changed as well as part of this.
Okay. Any other questions for Travis? Okay. If not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Approved.
Thank
Travis.
you.
Item 6.7, consider approving a professional service agreement with Kentucky Engineering Group in the amount of $263,620 for engineering services for the filter valve isolation project at the water treatment plant.
The water treatment plant has 8 filters and utilizes 49 valves to isolate these filters and maintenance is necessary. The majority are original to the plant or in need of replacement. Request for qualifications was sent to 5 engineering firms and 2 responses were received. Under this proposal, Kentucky Engineering Group will provide full engineering services throughout the project duration as outlined in the scope of services. The fiscal year 23-24 budget includes $1.2 million for engineering and construction. Construction is expected to continue through next fiscal year as well. Fiscal year 24-25 budget includes $1 million for completion of the project. Staff recommends the board approve the agreement with Kentucky Engineering Group contingent upon receipt of insurance requirements. The attached agreement has been reviewed and approved by the staff attorney.
Okay.
I have a
John?
question.
Sure.
Brian, you said we got two responses. Was the other bid, what was the issue with the other bid, and was it price-wise, or?
The other bid was higher. This engineering group actually came in. We offered for everybody to come in and look at the project. This one came in, and we probably sat down with them for probably an hour and a half, and they'd already pointed out some things that, we kind of looked over and had some ideas. So that was really reassuring.
Okay.
Have we used them before?
We have not. This will be new to us, but they've been around for quite a while. We see them at schools all the time, so they're in the water industry.
Okay, good. Okay. Any other questions do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 6.8, consider approval of change order number 1 for the Taylor Tot painting project, bid number 1777. Brian? I had to get all my sevens in there,
Yeah, this is the number 1 this will be the one change order for the Taylor Tot tank painting project. March of 2023, the board awarded the construction contract for the Taylor Tot tank painting project to Kearns Construction Services. The bid schedule included allowance items to establish costs in the event of additional repairs that would be needed. During the inspection, it was determined that 22 of the roof beams were in need of replacement, along with some miscellaneous pit and seam repairs. In addition, a credit was granted for some handrails and sway rods that didn't need replacement or repair work. So, summary, the original contract cost was $529,800. Change order 1 with the credit will be a total of $72,364. The new contract price will be $602,164. The budget amount, 2023-24 budget, was $667,000, and due to the additional time required to replace the roof beams, the change order includes increasing the contract time for 20 days. Copy of this change order, you guys got that. Staff recommends the board approve change order number 1 for the amount of $72,364 and a project extension of 20 days with Kearns Construction Services. Any questions?
And this wraps up this project?
Yes, we're hoping to get the tank back in service next week.
Okay.
Is the plan. On some of the legs, on the footing where the concrete is, they're going to come in and put coating on those, but that's part of the project. They're going to get that done tomorrow. So.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 6.9, Nichelle, consider approval of Korn Ferry to review FPB's current compensation plan. This was a matter that we talked about maybe 2 meetings ago, I guess at the June meeting.
Yes.
And Nichelle went out, took bids. She let us know earlier that that she was in the process of working with these firms. I think y'all probably seen Korn Ferry clearly they've done work for state government. They clearly have an impressive resume. I've looked at it. All the questions I have, they've answered. But, I'd like not to spend this much on this. I'll be honest. I'd like them to tell us and then open it up for everybody.
Okay.
I'd like them to be able to answer some of the questions, but maybe not have to engage and do all the work till we get our questions answered and know where we want to go at that point once we hear. And I don't know if that's an option. Maybe it's just me, and I'll just kind of open it up to everybody and see what you all think.
Well, let me just mention, I understand when I proposed those additional questions
Right.
to the consultant and we discussed it, they would need to use their data that they already have to make a comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And because they have already researched and done the work to compile that type of data, That's why it would be the additional amount. And you have two options. So the first option is if they were to use our current pay scales, current job titles, they're just using what we currently have
Right.
and then compare it to the market. But then if you want,
And then what does that cost?
that would have been the 65,550 with the additional cost for the market data. So it comes to about 73.
That's using our data.
Yes.
But wasn't there a phase 1 and phase 2 type? And phase 3, wasn't there like a first part, then a second part, then like some type of subscription?
Yes, the subscription is, that's the additional market data, which was published 2 weeks ago. So you would have to include that.
And if we want them to use their data, it's the 96 figure?
Yes.
What the 43,000 cover?
Yeah.
That's the first one.
Yeah, what if we don't want the nicer wheels and the leather? Like, we'd like to have cloth and the rubber floor mat.
Manual transmission.
Manual transmission, nylon bias belt tires, just the.
Right. I think that was the additional when they, after they had a better understanding what we were looking for. So that was the initial quote. The consulting fees would have been 38,000. And then again, the additional 7,100 for the market data. So.
Steve?
Well, I just like to have a checkup first, and then once you make the diagnosis, the preliminary, then you can come back to me with what I need to do to get healthy. I cannot in my conscience spend $96,000 for someone to tell me that we need to raise stuff again anyway. That's what's going to happen. I don't know why we are paying for data that they've already acquired from some other job that they've gotten paid to get it, and now they're just. It's compounding itself in their eyes for data. That 71,000 subscription fee is 7,100 subscription fee is data that they've already have acquired from another job.
But they have developed points and levels. So currently how we have our grade structure, they will analyze our jobs, assess it to assign points and levels, and then compare that to, if you wanted to do state government.
Well, the way I look at it is their methodology is I'm using the first example. Their methodology is $38,000 plus the administrative fee. Well, $38,000 and plus the administrative fee, which I don't know what that is. And to use the data to implement their methodology is $7,150. Because it looks like what they plan to do and what they have to do with it, they've priced separately. The data that they need to do whatever they were going to do is the $7,150. So one doesn't seem to be able to go without the other. You see, you almost have to have the data for them to do.
Right. You've done a great job getting all the options.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what I was hoping we'd see is for them to come in and say, okay, here's your current system, which we have, that we've invested a lot of time, effort in over the years. And for somebody to say, this system you have, as many questions we have, the 2% policy, how many classifications, is a good system, you just need to stay with it, or fundamentally you need to make some changes. I mean, I was kind of hoping for that kind of, like Steve said, kind of overview look at it.
An assessment of what our current system is.
Yeah, do we need to make changes, or is it a good system? I don't know, I mean, Jason, you and Catherine, what do you think?
Well, first off, Steve's point, as a consultant, and you build equity as a company, and you have value and stuff, and yeah, they have that data, but they still have to maintain it, they still have to manage it, they still have to keep it clean. I mean, there's a value to that, and it is proprietary information, so we are getting access to probably a lot of work. But I hear what you're saying, Steve. It seems a little strange, but it's value more than what do they get paid to have it. So that's their equity. I get that. I guess I'm coming down with where John's coming is I guess as a consultant, I always would do a phase one, just sort of diagnose what's going on, look under the hood, give some ideas before you kind of really jump in and start, taking out the engine and stuff. So I guess I'd prefer a phase one, just a looky-loo, kind of $10,000 or $8,000, because if they're like, this looks great, keep doing what you're doing, why are we paying another $80,000? So.
And the other, we have asked for a lot of consulting, electric stuff and water stuff, and invariably, Jason, you're right. What we usually get is some sort of initial swipe at what we need and some kind of analysis, and then they move on to what we decide what it is we want them to do. So I kind of feel the same way that Steve does. Is I don't know if I'm ready to vote to spend this much money on this right now, because I'm not sure it really is what we need.
Yeah,
Catherine?
I too have sticker shock.
Yeah.
You for the cloth interior?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just need to
very
get to
much
the
so.
store,
Yeah, I just need to get
I think with the customization, when I had sent everyone the letter with the questions, should we continue with the 2 and 2 is the midpoint. I think when we added in the specific questions, that's what increased the price, because now they're doing a specific job versus our standard, this is what we normally do. So we can most definitely go with the initial phase.
I mean, you've done a great job. You've done a great job putting this together and pulling everything and just,
Yeah. But I just want to make sure the board, gets what they're asking for. So if you go with the initial quote, then some of the concerns and questions that everyone was asking may not be included.
I guess I got 3 questions, if it's okay. Number 1, we're not required by regulation or law to do this. This is our own self kind of evaluation. Okay. Number 2, clearly this is not going to help us with our staff and employee, where we go, well, you can be upset, but hey, look at this report. It says you should be happy about your pay. That's not going to really help us in the market. It's not going to help us recruit. It's just for our own edification. But number 3, Nichelle, I just want to ask you, because this is your world. Would this help you, or do you feel like a higher level, just sort of evaluation would kind of check that box for you and we could kind of move on? So what would you like?
I would like a full study, because based on our policy currently right now, in 2024, we need to look at our salaries, overall salary scale anyway. And then it was questioned when we did the changes, the grade changes, and that was just a small review of a couple positions that we were having issues hiring for. So, if we could afford it, I would love to have a full study, just to see where we are with market, to see if we need to increase or remain the same or combine some job titles, things.
So I guess would a partial study still be helpful for you? Like if we decided to only do a partial, would that be of help to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Like we did a partial and they came back and said, here, and we looked at it and say, you're right, you've raised some points, we need to drill deeper. But if they come back and say, here's what you got, it's, within industry standards, everything's, then the board can make a decision whether to go deeper or not, or.
Yes. And then with the partial, they're going to do benchmarking. So what that means is, although they're just going to look at 70 positions, they're going to make sure those 70 positions is going to identify all our positions. So they'll look at the education and they'll try to group different job titles together, and to make sure that they're still being reviewed as well.
I personally would rather we're not rushed. There's no deadline to do this.
No, I agree.
Push back and look at it again next month or the next month. I'm not comfortable in voting for it. I don't know where I'm getting even the 43,000.
I agree.
And I'm not. That's not about you, because they wrote this, not you. Right. They wrote it. So I just like to sit back and look and think and maybe sharpen what we want, define what we want better, and then go out there and look again.
Well, and I agree with Steve. I mean, we are in such a weird job market right now that could change over the next 6 months, 9 months. I would hate to do a study that then if suddenly we drop to 2 or 3% unemployment, it just suddenly changes everything, or inflation drops off a cliff, or.
And we're clearly unique in that we have some areas we compete with the private sector directly. KU, Kentucky American, AT&T, Spectrum. Then we've got administrative type that we're really competing with K-State, city and county governments, state government, school systems. I mean, so we kind of run the gamut of kind of the type system we need to construct. So maybe, John, do you want to make a motion?
Well, Steve almost made the
I'll
motion.
make a motion. I'll make a motion
Steve make a
to-
motion, and I'll second it. How about that?
Actually, I'm not sure what the motion would be. To table?
Let's just
To
table it, yeah.
this?
And I guess to ask Michelle to go back and maybe talk to him again, maybe convey to him that, you know, we think they're wonderful, they're fabulous, but maybe to narrow down the scope, tighten it up, and, you know, then see what you can do on, you tell him, you know,
Yeah.
like little economy.
Okay.
Is that okay with, I mean, Catherine? Sure.
Yes, and, I mean, I don't want to open this up, but I do want to say that since it's extending the time, if there's something you need to bring to our attention that's now, you know, that has been pushed back, some decisions that you think aren't going to be able to wait, if you could bring that
Yes.
to, you know, Gary's attention and.
Okay.
So,
I thought I made the motion.
I'm go ahead and make it. Go ahead and make it. Just getting
I'll make the motion to table, what was it, 6.9?
6.9. Yes, and I will second.
We have a motion second, and Michelle, you kind of understand what we're,
Yes.
where we're kind of pointing you to kind of go back and reopen negotiations?
Yes.
Okay, we got that. Do we have a motion, Steve?
I guess we can just, actually, I was gonna say, really, it's on us to
Yes.
get
To
to you.
find out, you're right.
I'm not sure if you can find out what is in our minds, so we need to tell you.
Good luck if you can.
It's scary. We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Michelle, thank you. Good work on this.
Thank you.
Next one is, we're passing over item 6.10. David's going to come back next month, maybe with some, maybe with this same motion, maybe with a different concept.
Yes, sir. Well,
Okay.
we've got some other thoughts that we'll bring back.
Okay. Then item 6.11, consider proposed changes to compensation plan policy. These are some items we've talked about, and this kind of, basically what it does is kind of addresses some areas that we've talked about and gives Gary it kind of centralizes Gary as the person to review all these various areas: membership, employee recognition, bereavement policies, and so forth. And then it also includes, regarding the life insurance, this does not involve active employees, but had been a board policy before joining, I guess, CERS at some point, that it carried over and addressing that for current retirees, but not continuing that policy for any new retirees, correct, Michelle?
Correct. So retiree life insurance, we're asking the board to consider approving discontinuing the 5,000 retiree life benefit for retired employees with effective date September 1st of 2023.
So anybody currently retired is unaffected?
Correct.
Is that, Hans, this is, you've looked at it and this addresses the issues, I mean, you looked at federal circulars and PSC policies and state laws and
Yes, sir. I looked. I can't think of the name of the circular that you had referenced.
that OMB 85, 87.
So that's
Yeah.
it. That's it right there.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that all of those between the PSC and the AG opinions and that circular, they're all a tad bit different. But if we make them part of the compensation, part of the policy that the general manager oversees, then the board can designate. You know, just kind of like the compensation, the board has a statutory authority to say I'm gonna make whatever item. So you can make, for example, CPA dues or bar dues part of compensation. So it's not a gift at that point.
John,
and CERS is just like KERS. Then you only retire at the end of the month. So everybody that retired in August, everybody would retire August 31st was going to retire. And then, so anybody retiring in September before this meeting is their effective date is going to be September 30th, correct? Is that right, Michelle?
No.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Okay.
So
we didn't have anybody who's retired before this meeting or whatever?
No.
You know, okay, good. All right, that's fine.
Any questions on Steve?
It's not on this. I just had a question about the short and long-term disability. How does that work? When does that come into play? Or how is it activated, if that's a...
Okay, so once you're an employee for at least a year, in the event that you need to be off from work 30 consecutive days, that's when the short-term disability kicks in, and you're eligible for that up to 22 weeks. But it's determined based on the condition or the illness. And then as far as long-term disability, so the short-term helps carry you, the employee, to the long-term. You're eligible for long-term disability after 180 days of consecutively being off from work. But if you are considered to be long-term disabled, at that time we're transitioning you to no longer be an employee.
How does that coordinate with workers' comp?
Workers' comp is if
It's
you...
only related to the injury. This
would be any type of...
Well, my second question, is this event triggered by an employee-related activity?
No, so it can
so
be...
I can get hurt at home.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Anything you do at work be workers' comp. So this would
I
be...
get
But it
that.
could be
I
an
just don't know what
illness.
it gives you long-term for hurting myself playing ball.
But it's not only just injuries, it could be illnesses as well.
So, but this is not an event triggered by something I did at work.
Correct. It is not. So an individual could
So
have...
what's the I'll
cancer.
ask you later on.
No, okay. I was gonna say, an individual can have cancer, go off on family medical leave, and then after 30 days, be eligible for short-term disability, receive 60% of their weekly pay, and like I said, it would carry on. We have guidelines, so they have to provide medical cert to confirm that they are actually off for a injury or illness.
Okay. And just maybe when Steve follows up, I'd be interested just, in theory, workers' comp ought to cover, but sometimes worker comp covers for different amounts, shorter term, so forth. So if I got injured, say at work, and workers' comp would pay some of it, but then I'd still be off. Or if I'd qualify for CERS disability based on work, does this coordinate with all those, or is the medical on this totally independent of what CERS disability could pay for long-term disability if I was off, or workers' comp would pay, or is this in addition to?
So the policy for a long-term disability, it states that you have to seek all other benefits first. So you do have to go out and see if you can get Social Security disability.
This is the payer of last resort.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions on?
So basically, you can't stack benefits.
Right, that's
okay.
right, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. If not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approved. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Item number 6.12, consider award of bid invitation number 1788, substation signage to Cape Electrical Supply in the amount of $36,820. Scott Hudson.
Good evening again. Staff prepared a bid invitation for our substation signage, which we sent to 5 different vendors and advertised in the State Journal. This was brought up to you all during the budget meeting. We were replacing our signage in our substations that are no longer adequate or meets any kind of requirements, which EEE and 1910 269 standard OSHA. So the lowest bid was $36,820, and we're asking you all to approve that bid. $36,820, and it was included in the budget.
Was Cape the cheapest or the lowest cost, or?
Yes.
I assume it's a pretty standard, there's no really differences between the scope of work, it's just
all
straight price.
all they do is furnishing the signs. They have to make this, the signs are made to where they stay. You know, if you go to our substation signs now, you can see them. They're 15 years old, but you can still read them and see them, and so that it's made of a certain type of material to keep them lifelong. And then
do they install or do we install?
We install.
We install.
So all we're doing is just buying the signage and we install it, and they do give us the printout of where each sign should go in the substation, because it has to be a certain footage from point A to point B, and a certain sign here and a certain sign there. So,
any questions? If not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
We We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's approved. Thank you,
Thank you,
sir. Ratification of FEMA reimbursement contract, Mr. Denton and Travis. Travis is coming back again?
That's good news.
This is Travis night, you know?
Good evening again. So 6.13 is related to the big March windstorm. Everybody remembers the big outage and the FEMA claim related to that. FEMA works through the state emergency management to distribute the funds. State emergency management sent us a contract to sign, which was essential to be eligible to receive that reimbursement. Doesn't necessarily mean FEMA has approved or not approved or has told us when we're getting the money or how much, but it's a necessary step in the process. Because of the deadline to get that signed, Gary went ahead and approved it, so we've gotten that back to emergency management, and this item's just ratifying that action.
So if we don't want to ratify it, we can just refuse the money when it comes, right?
I would suppose so, yeah.
What is this gonna, what's the impact of this gonna be? Are we looking at the, what were our reimbursable costs, I guess, is the question.
Right. So we submitted to FEMA electric 388,000, telecom, excuse me, 180,000, and water 19,000. So that's what we submitted to FEMA. My understanding is it's pretty typical that only a portion, I think we're assuming 75% of that would be reimbursable. My understanding is they have not confirmed or denied that amount.
Anything yet?
Yeah, they have not told us definitively, yes, it's only 75%, or you get 100.
Will that money even come in this fiscal year?
Usually it takes a long time. I think it took like a year last time we went through this process, so we're kind of at their mercy as far as when they distribute the funds and send us the check.
David, did we have any of this money included in our budget? We weren't planning on any of this money coming.
No, sir, it's all on top.
Okay, thanks. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Anybody has any questions? Steve?
I was trying to get back.
If it's ordered, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to ratify the FEMA reimbursement contract described by Travis.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Steve can record his vote when he... And then it does not change the outcome.
That's right.
Item 6.14, FEMA contract. Consider resolution accepting the following 7-county broadband deployment program grants totaling $6.547, 729, approving the 7 grant assistance agreements, authorizing the amendment of the Frankfurt Plan Board annual budget, and authorizing a representative to sign all related documents. Adam and David Dent.
Mr. Heller, make his way up here.
Good afternoon, good evening, second time around. So, we've talked about this in detail for almost 2 years, so.
You might want to just start with kind of what date this first began.
Yeah,
and kind of take us through what's happened up to date.
So basically, we're aware of the state and federal broadband initiatives and the grant money that was out there. So I guess it was May, I don't have all the dates in front of me, but sometime around May of 2021, the county approached us and says, hey, they got this money coming out. You want to partner together and see if we can get some grant money. So, of course, the planning board had been looking to serve a lot of these unserved areas anyway, so we worked with the county and developed 8 grants, or 11 grants, totaling about 2,000 homes. We applied for all 11, and as luck had it, we won all 11. In the time we put the grants together and got it back, we had some, of course, we have contract labor doing our overbuild. We started having issues with contract labor as far as pricing, material lead times, and cost. And so just as we were about ready to sign for the grants, we started looking at some of the different costs. At that point in time, we had an area in Chadwick Ferry, so we could monitor the take rate of what we were seeing there. So we decided to step back, take that information, and working with David, he kind of put us a stress test together on what it was going to look like. At that point in time, we were well over budget on what we initially thought the project was going to cost based on those numbers. And so we came back to the board. The board says, okay, scale it down. So we talked to the state again. In that time, we also looked for additional monies, either with state, federal, any other grants we could get. So basically, we stepped back and we carved it out and we modified each grant area. So we still kept all 11 areas. We just shrunk the coverage in each area, resubmitted that to the state. The state says, okay, we'll accept that. You're still doing, at least half of what we were doing before. At that point in time, I don't know the exact date, we met with the county. In between some of there, we had actually signed an interlocal agreement when the county was on board before we applied for the
And the
initial
original
grants.
grant was 16 total.
16 total.
5 from
Five from
us,
the plant
3 from
board.
the county.
Right.
And 8 million state.
Yes.
Okay.
And so basically, we done that. We came back with a revised number, which got us down from about 2,000 to about 1,050 homes at about $16.9 million, which was kind of where we wanted to be. And so basically, with that, we met with the county. I think there was, county wanted to see more. They still wanted the entire county. Once again, we had several meetings with people at the state to see if we could get additional funding. We exhausted just about every avenue that you could come up with, or staff came up with, the ways to get additional funding to cover this project. At that point in time, I guess we basically sent the county a letter saying, okay, this is what we're doing, and we kind of need to know. The other thing that happened in the middle of this, we contacted the state and says, hey, is there any way? And basically the state responded back saying, you're in or out, there will be no more changes to the grants. You can either accept them or reject them, all or some.
And they gave us a drop dead date of September 30th.
September 30th, yes, sir.
John, so when did we send a letter to the county?
When we first send the 11 agreements down to the county.
Well, when's our last correspondence with the county?
That was the letter that Gary sent August. That was hand delivered by Mrs. Poe.
Yeah, it was around the 23rd of August.
Okay.
But the 11 agreements went down to the county when? Do you remember when
This board approved, accepted the new 11 revised in March, and I believe it was around April that we had the interlocal agreement say we would have extensions approved with the county. And so we asked the county to approve the 11 extensions, and that's kind of where we left it. Since April.
Then we went and talked to the fiscal court in May, I believe.
Right.
And then when we finally got the last word back that September 30th was the drop dead date, we sent the most current letter to the county, and to not only to the judge but to all the magistrates, correct? And
that letter was dated this last week, week before last.
It was back in August. It was in August.
I'm sorry.
And that letter, refresh my memory, correct me if I'm wrong. That letter essentially told them we need to know by September 30th. So what we need to know from you is we need to know whether you're in or out by August 31st.
Right.
And we received no response from the county, correct?
As far as I know, we still haven't received no response.
And if we don't respond, if we don't send something to the state by September 30th, we lose all the matching.
We lose all
Yes.
of it.
So our option at this point is to take the $5 million that we were putting in, match it with the state grant, and then what we got in front of us was you developed numerous options.
Right.
And this one,
yeah, this
you want to talk a
option-
little bit about what this proposal
Yeah,
is?
so originally we had 11 areas.
Uh-huh.
And like I said, the state says, take them or leave them. You can't change them anymore.
Right.
And so basically what we done to try to stay within that amount of money is we had to drop areas off.
Mhm.
And so we looked at areas that, possibly would not make financial sense based on homes passed, based on several different things. And so we scaled it down till we got it's right at $6.5 million. So it's still more than we, basically agreed in the $5 million. So we're
Right.
actually going above and beyond. So
we're going to put additional money in
Right.
from the FPB,
Right.
and that will match with the state money.
Right.
So the total project will be about 13.
is 13. Yes,
almost
just a little over $13
almost
million.
13.1, yeah.
So we'll be putting in, our original plan was put in 5.
Yeah.
We'll be putting in
Six and a
6.5.
half. Yes, sir.
And this will give us how many homes?
884 homes passed.
And one of the letters we sent to the state was, because the state's going to be getting roughly, $1 billion in new federal money next year.
Right.
And one of the letters we sent to the state was, can you take any of that money and help us, because we were looking at the 30 and 40% inflation.
Right.
Now, nothing stops us, the county, anyone else, if they want to apply for the new money that will become available next year, to apply for that.
Correct.
But this locks in the money that we've already been awarded.
Right. It's a different program,
And-
so this is
and-
part of the Recovery Act. The other grants that are out will be out to the first of the year.
Is the
are
infrastructure.
The BEAD, yes.
And there's no guarantee in the new money how much
That you
we
would-
could or couldn't get.
Right, or if you get any.
But we've got this.
We got
About
this.
this. Now, Adam, the unserved areas were essentially identified here, and we said we're going to try to cover them such that when we cover these 884 homes, the other addresses that we're not going to be covering under this plan, correct me if I'm wrong, those addresses will essentially go back in the pool, and if us or some other provider wants to put forth some sort of grant money and say, we want to serve these underserved addresses, they'll be eligible to
Yes,
do
sir.
so.
So basically, those address points will be turned back into the database, and then they will be up for any other federal program, state program down the road. And I think that's one reason why the state's trying, they just did phase 2 of the BEAD program, $380 million. So I think they're trying to get everything cleaned up for the federal program that's coming out the first of the year. So,
And if we can put together a program for that, we might be able to take some more of those homes.
So
under
let's
this
just
new
say our
program.
take rate's 80 or 90%.
Yes.
And we have additional funds coming in, and let's just say we complete this project a little under budget.
Right.
We could take those funds, and if they're there,
Yes.
and possibly apply for matching funds and additional grants down the road.
But one of the things that Adam mentioned and kind of glossed over, and I wanted to say publicly, was, what really kind of caused us a lot of concern was we had a brand new area on Chadwick Ferry, and we were really promised a lot of stuff about everybody here wants this. 80, 90, 95% of the homes want this. The take rate there is about 50%.
In writing, they came back and said they want it.
And for us, if this is all a take rate for us. If take rate is 70, 75, 80%, things are going really well for us. If we spend all this money to go in these remote areas and our take rate is 50%, it's a losing proposition. And again, anytime you say it's a losing proposition for FPB, it's a losing proposition for our ratepayers. So, and we would not be able to do this if we didn't have 50% match in a lot of these areas.
And you built these numbers on the premise that these rates and these structure will be the same as our other customers. We're not proposing that these customers pay more
They
than
would fall under the
existing
same
customers.
tariff, no mileage charge or anything like that.
Same rules
Same
apply.
rules apply, yes, sir.
Would you be able to speak a little bit about the costs per home and the basic infrastructure to get to those homes and the ability to scale at a lower cost for
Yeah.
additional homes past that?
Let me see
And you
if I
don't
can
have to get specifics, but just the general, because a lot of this is trunk lines.
Yeah, so basically, we would not be installing, I mean, you're looking at about $1,000 install. And in the county, the drops are longer because it's not as dense. So so if people do not take the service, there is some savings there because you're not running that additional fiber. You'll still have to put in most of the infrastructure, so all of your backbone fiber will be placed. Most of your MST tails or enclosure will be placed. So your savings would be, and I guess you can say it's a savings, but that's what we do with our overbuild today. Is so basically we build everything, and until that customer makes that initial order, that 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet fiber install is not done. So it's $1,000 or so, but those kind of go against you too because you don't have the revenue. So there's a little bit of savings.
Would it be fair to say, if there's roughly 1,000 homes being connected with your proposal, that about 1 million of it is the direct connection as a house and all the rest is the backbone infrastructure? Okay, so, I mean, this is really a investment in building infrastructure into the county that will benefit the future ability to grow off of. So I think we don't want to get lost in the woods here. This is not 800 homes being hooked up. It literally is an artery out into the county to allow them to have high-speed internet.
And, pole attachment, pole space, the size of the fiber, we're trying to put stuff in place. So, I mean, just like 30 years ago when we built the FSN network, the coax network we're on today, we didn't serve the entire service area. And it took years. I mean, we still do routine extensions. So think of it this way. When you go out and you build the county, you pass 884 homes. 2 years from down the road, there might be another subdivision pop up or another development. Those would be served under routine extension. So it's not that we're going to do this 884 and stop. we'll always continue to expand out, and this puts the infrastructure in place to do that.
So, I mean, the idea is that this was aimed at getting done quicker. What we've planned to do
All along.
all along, but to do it quicker.
Yeah, we actually had a plan back in 2009 to pick up these 1,000 homes, and just really, it was just the cost then was too high. But as your grant comes along and you start seeing a 50% match, well, does it make sense now? But of course, then we get hit with a lot of the stuff with COVID and
What, about 40% inflation, David? wasn't it?
so you're looking at some of those, and it kind of goes back to the 2009. So
Yeah. So let's be clear on the story. I mean, the county approached us. They asked us to be their partner.
Right.
We've done our part and more so. And I have to say, I feel a little left at the altar here.
Absolutely.
This agreement that we have, this interlocal agreement, is it binding to any level with the county, or they have, I mean, it seems like we've gotten in this with them to apply to the state. I mean,
We're on the state contracts. The plant
Okay.
board is signing on the state contracts, and the plant board will be responsible for all the costs. Now, the interlocal comes in where, I can't remember what paragraph it is, but it says, okay, the county had the $3 million. We're gonna have a particular agreement, say with, for example, the Ball Knob expansion project, say. So we would do an extension agreement with the county for that particular project if they wanted to. And then we would bill them for the 3/8, the 3 million to the 8 million. And that expansion project would have a schedule and so on and so forth. But that paragraph goes on to say that nobody's obligated to enter into any extension agreement. So that interlocal is just kind of the framework that's there that you can use if you want, but you gotta have the extension agreements that go with it. And if the county doesn't want to commit their 3 million, then that's of course their decision. But we are on the hook for the entirety of the projects for the state to get it done.
but we've been able to design that for 6.5 of our own
And
money.
that's what they,
Okay.
that's what everybody's been,
Okay.
been doing a whole lot of work to try to get the numbers to where the plant board alone can handle it.
So, do you mind if I ask again, just on the numbers, the 6 million that's being left on the table between the 3 million and the county and 3 million to match, how many extra homes would that represent? I know you've been dreaming these numbers for months.
The total project was 1,057, so we're down to 884.
Okay, so about 200 plus
Less
homes.
than 200 homes, yeah.
Okay.
And one of the things I think, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, David, what we've seen has allowed Adam to kind of put together what he's got here, was we've seen some softening on the inflation. Not what was already happened, but the projected.
Oh, good.
Because when David put together originally, we didn't know when some of these prices in terms of labor and materials would soften. But you've seen not a rollback, but actually, we're not seeing the continued increases, right?
Right. Yeah, we're seeing the steady, not the increase that we
Yeah,
thought.
from the time we submitted our application in October of '21, and then we were awarded in June of '22, it was a month later we started to see these bids come in on our existing overbuild of our current territory coming in much, much higher. And we're like, this is going to impact this future build. And we started looking at the numbers. It was going to financially negatively impact the plant board, which would impact existing customer base. So we had no choice, in my mind. We had to ask for some adjustment or just not do it at all, because it was going to financially impact us in a really negative way. So we are seeing a decrease. Now there is a lot more money flowing in, so I'm not getting my hopes up just yet. But we've got a number locked in with the state, and we are obligated to hit that number. All hopes that things will smooth out, and maybe we can do it for cheaper than we thought. But like Adam said, in that case, if we did have extra money, we can discuss what we do at that time.
David, do you mind discussing financially how this expansion in the county will not affect our current telecom rate customers and how that works?
Sure. Like, we pass our budget each year, and you can go out to our website and see it. We're looking at this in two different ways. Like, the current existing budget is our current existing territory and our existing plans. The grant was looked at as a way it needs to be able to self-fund itself or be able to financially sustain itself. If it did not financially sustain itself, then it would be a drag on the rest of the financial performance of the company. So that's the way we looked at it. So we're hoping, when you look at the numbers, they're not great. I mean, this company is not getting financially advanced from this. This is, if we have a great take rate, that's a different story. But so far, all things point to 50, 60% take rate. So really, we're crossing the figures that the cost will be better. Inflation will not continue as rapidly as it has.
Catherine?
I just want to emphasize staff's diligence at the get-go by recalculating and us not just signing off and being stuck holding the bag, but then working again to modify and getting the state to accept that. And I know Mr. Cubine, Mr. Snyder, and staff have been diligent in trying to work with our local partner. I would ask, this is probably hoping against hope, is to wait till maybe Friday in case our local partner might change their mind, but I know you all need time to
I'm going to be honest with you.
redo.
I'm going to be honest with you, Catherine. If they haven't even they haven't even called us. I mean, they haven't even picked up the phone and called us and said anything. And I'm done with it. I don't know about
Well,
you. I understand. I understand. We're
I
trying.
mean, we might be done with them. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying there's, residents out there that
I
might be
understand.
watching,
I
and they might not
understand.
have understood what was going on.
I understand.
So,
Yeah.
I always hope too long, but, if that's workable, and if that happened, we would have to have an
Special meeting,
emergency,
yeah. Yes.
or special meeting. And, I mean, I, for one, am willing to do that. So,
Yeah, I agree with Catherine on everything she said. I also like to thank David and Adam for what they've done with all of this. But I think that the overlying point that I think is being made here is that the plant board is a service organization, and they are trying to find ways to provide service to as many people in the county as possible. And this is just one big example of that.
Well, and I'd make the extra point that most for-profits would probably not take this deal.
Oh, no.
As a
Never in a
municipal
million years.
utility, this is the role we play. We
Right.
close that last half mile. This is the role we play for the community. And I appreciate you guys running the numbers to make sure that this is not a negative to the community, but you guys have sharpened your pencil a lot on this, so thank you.
So basically what we have, we've got this proposal in front of us. We can approve it with the understanding that we approve it, and if any other communication comes in before Friday, you gotta put this to bed, right? Absolutely.
We have until the 30th, but we're going to need a few days. As
crunching,
far as the procedure, yes, sir, all 7 grants, this resolution is part of each of those 7, so we've wrapped them all up together. We're asking for these 7 for now. The authorizing the annual budget change. We talk about capital contributions under our other income is where we recognize these grants, and because we're going to have a reduced, we won't have the county match, and we are going to be reducing the amount of the state. We'll need to adapt the budget for that, and then we're asking that Mr. Cubine would be authorized to sign all of these. So the deal is we need to get all these to the state by the end of the month.
And as I make sure I understand, Adam, the state said we've got to do something by the 30th, but the end date for these grants, when we got to be done, remains unchanged, right?
At this point, yes.
So the date we have to hit to have all this done is when?
December of '26.
So that remains unchanged, even though we're kind of from 2021 till now.
We've lost a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do allow in the agreement to, if we do see an issue in the future, to, in writing, request an extension. And
Right.
we also need to, in the grant agreement says if there's been a material change in the funding status or the funding partner, we need to disclose. So we would just, in a cover letter, tell them, we want to let you know that we're moving forward without the funding partner, and we would like to cover the match.
And all the costs we've incurred, engineering, design, everything we've done, we've basically absorbed that internally. We've not charged anything to this grant because we don't have the grant funds, and all that's been funded internally.
Yes, sir. Yeah, just to keep it moving.
Yeah. John?
Two things. Number one, if the county does come back to us by Friday and says, we want to partner up, and we want to partner up for the full $3 million, we want to partner up for part of it. If we want to partner up for the first $3 million, for the full $3 million, that's the best case scenario, because we already have a plan in place to address that.
Yes.
That's already been done, it's already been presented to the county, et cetera, et cetera. If the county comes back to us and says, we have $1 million or $1.5 million or some amount of money, that would we have enough time in order to expand out and change in order to meet the September 30th deadline?
I mean, if David can do it on the financial side, I think we could pull something together. Like I said, we're buying whole pieces, so it's like, it's whatever's gonna fit. We can't just cut $500,000 off, so whatever we sign for is what we're committed to. So, there might be, we say $3 million, by the time we get down, if we can't fund it all, they wanna do $1 million, we might only need $800,000 because we don't have enough for that next area. So,
I guess,
No, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
guess, John, what constitutes a offer from the county, from the fiscal court?
I don't.
I mean, I'm just saying
what's
that
that
because
saying?
I
Oh, yeah.
just wanted to have
You know it
something
when you
bad
see
to
it.
get things say something,
Because the interlocal agreement, the mechanism is that we, FPB, approve an extension agreement, and then the county agrees and approves the extension agreement. And then under that agreement, the reimbursement and how all that works so we need to approve, they would need to approve to make sure we're all feel good about it, and then sign on the dotted line.
So they would have to do an official action by sometime Friday.
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let me ask you a question on, we talked about roughly 200 homes for that amount of money.
Yes, sir.
I'm guessing that there may be some proportionality there. Like if they give $1.5 million, maybe it's not half of those homes. We might be able to get a little bit more.
mean, actually, somebody posed that question earlier this week, and we were trying to figure out how to do it. So basically what we've done is we just took what we're averaging now per home passed and just did the math, because you're right. It's depending on what area you select, depends on how much it costs to build, how clustered the houses are. So yeah, there's a little more dynamic.
So it would be fair to say, we're really just saying to the county, let's make a deal. Come to us, tell us what you have, what you'd be willing to contribute to be part of this project, and we will try to maximize that for the benefit of the residents. Okay.
But then again,
sorry, it's a
though,
little game show going on here. I apologize for that.
But we're still obligated to the chunks.
Yeah,
So your last 4 grants, that's what we got to pick from. So wherever their money buys them, and those 4 areas is what we have to deal with. So.
Well, thank you for all your work. I know you've revamped this so many times.
Mike and Shane, they've had a lot to do with this too, and David.
Yeah.
I mean, so Katrina.
I did have one more point, and I want to bring this up with Hans. Hans, if the county does not reach out to us at all, if the county is not a partner in this, does this interlocal agreement, does it go away? Do we have to cancel it? How do we handle that?
It can be terminated by either party. It would just be kind of sitting there. It would exist.
Would you recommend we go ahead and take board action to terminate it at our next meeting if we don't get any cooperation?
I'll probably terminate it just to clean it up.
Okay.
Just to clean it up, and then it's not
Okay. Not hanging out there?
hanging out there.
Okay.
Well,
So basically, if we adopt this plan, we're releasing the county's $3 million to them. They won't have to put that money into the project over the next period of time. And so if we adopt this, we're moving forward with FPB's matching funds and the state grant, and we'll submit it. So we take that action with the proviso that if Gary gets some communication between now and Friday that the county says, we're interested in putting some money in it, what's available for that amount of funds, we're saying to Adam that he's available to take a look at it, show them what that amount of money will buy. If they want to do it, they'll have to take official action to say that's what we'd like to get in for that amount of money and proceed with it in the state match. If not, we just go on and send the grant.
And I'm glad you emphasized official action.
Yes. I mean, they need to
Not
say,
just, well, we're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because Friday's the deadline
Right.
for you all to be able to do your work.
John?
I understand where Catherine's coming from. I respect where Catherine is coming from. I think if we get, to be honest with you, I think if we get anything from the county, it's going to be more of a, oh yeah, we'd like to do this way. I don't think we're going to get anything anything official and actionable from the county. I just don't. I'm fine giving them that option.
Sure.
But I just don't think we're gonna do anything, and I think we need to be, Catherine is right. It has to be official action on their part. They have to be willing to put their names on these agreements like we are. So I'm fine leaving that in there. I just don't expect, I just don't think we should expect very much.
But we're taking action on what's in front of us.
Yes.
And then, so if we hear nothing from the county, we don't need to take any further action. But if we have some type of communication,
We'll have to, especially.
Adam can answer whatever questions, whatever, and then if they come back with an official action saying, we're in for 3 or 1.5 or 2 or whatever it is, drawing the state match, then we'd have to have a special meeting to review that and act on it. Is that?
Yep.
Okay? So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Adopted. Adam, thanks again for.
No
I know. Item 6.15, Jason, you want to talk about this?
The renewable director for the state, Kenya Stumps, contacted me about a week ago saying that they want to put in for an official pot of money to support various solar initiatives in the state. One would be being able to partner with local built community solar projects and be able to buy those shares to share with low-income residents and communities. So we've talked about this already, about the ability for some other entity to be able to buy shares, to be able to then donate and give. This sounds like she'd be looking for this pot of money to be able to do that very thing. So I think it's very much in our interest to support a letter of interest for the state, and she gave us a template, so very easy for us to fill it out and put our name in.
Hans, have you looked at the template? Is it?
I've looked at the template. I talked with Gary. One of the concerns that I've heard is, well, if we participate or sign on, does that jeopardize our tax credits? And that would be a very difficult question to answer with all the regulations and so on. I would say that I'm like the rest of the group. I think it's a great thing. I think you could support it as long as your name's not on the application.
Yeah, it wouldn't
we're
be,
not getting
yeah.
any money from it, and our policy allows for to purchase it. It would just be following along with our standard policy,
Yeah.
where whoever it is can purchase it, whether it's an individual or the OEP or anybody, and then you can buy those shares and then give them to whoever you like. The only thing I was wondering about the letter says, it says we commit to supporting OEP implement their scope of work outlined in the distributed solar market strategy. I don't exactly know what all that would entail, but I'd say the board could take the template and have some type of a letter saying, yes, our policies allow for the gifting of shares.
I would say that the letter is just a template. We can amend it to whatever level we're comfortable. We just state that, we do community solar, that we do allow for the purchase of the shares to be shared to, to gifted.
I think it's a one-time transfer.
Yeah.
That would be the only thing.
Yeah, but we just state that. I'd say just state that in the letter and say we support any programs that would, and then I don't think we definitely don't need to sign on to the grant. I think she's just trying to build up I've done a lot of grants before, just letters of support to be able to show that there's enough community solar interest to use the money with, so, yeah.
Steve?
I think we're okay with the concept, so my recommendation is, Jason, you and Nance get together, draft a letter to satisfy both of you all, and then send it.
Okay.
And authorize Gary to sign it?
Yes.
Okay.
Just don't write a check for me.
No, I'm happy that we would amend the template just to fit our exact position, and if Kenya doesn't feel that's helpful, she just won't include it.
Yeah.
Maybe it shouldn't worry at all. I'm just looking for ARA when we ask a direct funding our portion for our community solar, we want a 30%, whatever. As long as we are, I don't think so. I just remotely think about that.
I think us putting a general letter of support in for a state grant is not going to affect our tax credit. So,
intuitively, I think if our name's not on there and we're not
Yeah.
getting any of those funds, you'd be all right. Yeah.
Well, we're more stating the fact that we have built a community solar project and we support anything that can do to help low-income residents be able to take advantage of it. I mean, it's, yeah. Okay.
So we have a motion to authorize Jason to work with Gary and Hans to get a letter ready and submit it. We have a motion, do we have a
Gary to
second?
sign it, yes.
Okay. Second.
Jason's got a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion approved. Item 7.1. This one, this would be kind of what I'm kind of thinking would be the first of, what's going to be maybe several discussions about this. But as you know, we continue to get requests, whether it's private business, schools, residential developers, industrial developers, commercial developers, regarding our economic development policy. And right now, we have a very restrictive tariff. But we are asked about it a lot. And what I thought may be helpful as kind of a first phase is to ask Travis to kind of come up, and Travis has been surveying other municipals to kind of discuss what do they do, what are their policies. Then after he finishes, we can discuss it for however long anybody wants. But what I was thinking is after he discusses it, if anybody's got some ideas that in terms of what a policy might be for us to consider in terms of cost, risk, value of economic development, what some of the guidelines, criteria might be, to kind of bring those forward, let Gary and Travis start pricing them, working through them, and then bring us back some concepts. So if it's all right, Travis, you want to kind of tell us what you found from your nationwide search?
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. I'll start just briefly with our policy. So an individual customer, if they want to come and connect to our system, there are provisions for the planning board to make contributions to that line extension cost. Say, I'm building a house, I need 500 feet of line. In the tariff, if that's overhead, that customer will get that for free. Now, that's an individual customer. For subdivision developments, there's a specific language in the tariff that says that the entirety of that cost has to be borne by the developer.
Okay.
So if say a residential development comes in, 100 homes, it's $1 million in infrastructure. The developer has to pay that entire cost up front. There's no reimbursement mechanism. That's the cost. They pay it, and that's the policy. As you mentioned earlier, it is more on the restrictive side. I talked to OMU, I talked to Bowling Green, I looked at KU's tariff. Most of their policies have some either aided to the construction or reimbursement to the developer. Many years ago, the board had contracts where if a developer came in, as the project grew, people took occupancy of the lots, the developer would get a portion of that, their funds back as the project developed. Again, that was an old policy. It is no longer in place. So that's an option to consider. OMU, they call theirs a revenue test method. So if it's $1 million project and they think they're going to get $500,000 over 3 years, just round numbers, they'll essentially take a portion off of the cost the developer has to pay. So that's, again, another option.
So the developer puts up the $1 million in that example.
Right.
And then the project's projected to generate $500,000 in 3 years, then OMU would refund part of that $1 million deposit back to the developer.
The way I understood OMU's is that's an upfront discount. That was the way I understood the conversation. Okay. KU's specifically mentions refunds, so it looks more on theirs. They're kind of like our method where they put everything up front and then as it's built out, you get pieces back.
Why did we abandon our old policy that?
Yeah, my understanding of it was essentially that the cost is what the cost is. As the development goes up, you're refunding a developer who's already going to price that utility cost into their lot. So it was seen as a little bit of extra icing on the cake, if you will, to the developer. And those costs eventually, they do come out of our capital budget. Downstream, that has an effect on our rates. So do we want to, I think the thought was, we don't want to negatively impact our rates to benefit a developer. I think that was the thinking behind it at that time.
How would we handle like a major commercial or industrial customer? Or how would OMU and Bowling Green handle those type people?
So for us, if it's a single customer, say somebody's, I'm I'm building a factory and I need 1,000-foot extension. They would get 1,000 feet for free from us. If it's beyond that, they have to pay that portion. Depends a little bit. There are caveats if it's overhead versus underground. If it's a really big industrial customer, underground ends up being cheaper, so that's what they get for free. Same for residential. If it's single residence, you get 1,000 feet of overhead for free. Those are based on old PSC guidelines that have been around, kind of forever. So we do treat those individual customers differently. Same for, commercial business. The only carve-outs from that would be if it's clearly a non-revenue service. So if somebody, so you're building a garage and you say, yeah, I'm just gonna park my car in there, but I want electric service. There's no aid to construction for that. That's full cost to an individual customer. But if it's a new home, new business, it's a revenue service. For individuals, there's no charge for that. KU's policy reads a lot like those old PSC rules, kind of the same thing. It's the 1,000 foot for free. A lot of the co-ops do that. They still kind of have that old, they may be obligated to the PSC policy. As a matter of fact, co-ops and investor owns, that is essentially along those lines, 1,000 feet of overhead for free.
Does PSC have any guidance or any rules on this at all?
I don't know that they specifically address subdivision developments or multi-lot developments.
Or industrial or commercial?
Yeah, I think that the 1,000-foot rule that most people follow is from the PSC, and I think, like I said, KU, that's a across the board type of rule. I think it is. Yeah, that sounds correct. Yeah. So again, really, there's kind of any flavor the board likes out there. You could find someone else that does it that would, we could adopt a policy based off of. I think that was just, kind of where we wanted to start it. We do think we're probably a little bit on the more restrictive side for those multi-lot developments. But there is, on the flip side, there's some risk to extending capital out there. We've had subdivision developments over the years where I know electric specifically has built out our facilities to developments that never came to fruition. So there is that risk on the other side of it. That was kind of the thought process behind doing the refund process. The money comes out of our budget, but you're not losing it all because you are in fact getting that growth, and you're not sending the check out until those houses get bills or commercial.
And I know there's a balance in that, we want Frankfurt to grow because more customers helps us, spreads the cost, bigger base. It helps all customers.
Right.
But right now, if say John and I were starting a business, we're only going to have 5 employees, not use much power, or Steve was doing a business and he was going to have 1,000 employees and be a major user, we would treat them the same.
More or less, yeah, unless you could look at one and definitively say, no, there's no way we'd ever recoup our investment. So I think this process is going to kind of help staff really make those decisions. Like I said, OMU they have what they call the revenue test method, which I think is, kind of would help us. Not that we have to adopt that
Right.
anyone, but kind of navigating those gray areas, if you
And
will.
what about Bowling Green?
Bowling Green, I talked to their electric superintendent. Their policy is, I don't want to say it's not written. They don't really have a strict policy on multi-lot subdivision developments. My understanding, part of the reason is within their city limits, they're pretty much grown up in Bowling Green. So they're not extending a lot of facilities to new developments. They said it was kind of a judgment call. If it looked like a viable project, the developer would put the conduit in, do concrete pads, that kind of stuff, and they would come in and supply the wire. Again, I couldn't find any kind of written policy on that, so I think it's, kind of goes back to the judgment.
Another
call type of
option
thing.
is to get into some type of clawback where they do it, and if the development doesn't happen as proposed, then we'd have to go back, say we front it, then we'd have to go back and try to get our money back if it didn't happen.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
That's ugly.
That is tough. I think Bowling Green I could be confusing Bowling Green and OMU, but one of them said, now if they put the infrastructure in, say the backbone, and as individual customers come along and connect to that, they usually will do that for free, but there is, I guess you call it a clawback. If they say we need 5,000 kilowatts, and they say, okay, you get it for free, and they don't in fact use that, they have that type of clawback, which, you know, I think as long as if you're tying that to an existing customer, may not be popular, but there's, you know, at least a way to get your money back on that.
Open up for everybody here.
Yeah, Travis, I appreciate you looking into this. That's helpful. We've had a lot of questions in the community about how we approach this. I think some people lump us in with IOUs, which is not a fair. They're a for-profit entity. We're a non-profit entity, obviously. Based on our last discussion, we make investments on behalf of the community already as part of what we do, that this above and beyond. It sounds like right now what we have in place is very quantitative. It's very straightforward. It's very prescriptive. I am concerned that if we start moving into subjective rulemaking, that we may open ourselves to lawsuits. If we have a formula and we use it and we go, you know, it's only going to show a 40% revenue, someone might go, well, you're not using the right numbers. And it just might open staff and open us up to a lot of people going, well, you gave that person $1 million and help, but you're not giving it to me. And I think I'm bringing more jobs, like the Steve versus the John kind of approach. I do think, as John said, that we want to be in the business of helping Frankfurt's grow. We're seeing Frankfurt, a lot of things happening in Frankfurt right now. I just think that we need to take a lot of time and do this properly and make sure that we're creating a system that is as prescriptive as possible and meets as many of the scenarios in a very ordered way, as opposed to a subjective way, because I am concerned as soon as it becomes subjective, all bets are off, you know?
Yep.
Catherine?
I think Jason just made some good points, so I
And if
think
you
we
want,
need
I
to
mean,
take our time.
We've had, you know, Steve and I met right after that dig group met. We met with them. Theirs was all pretty much residential. Terry Bradshaw did say our rates were good, were competitive. The dig group was very interested in some type of deposit type program. Like he talked about, a residential developer put up money, then some type of percentage of return. So I mean, they're there, but I mean, we certainly, you know, for y'all to think about it, we could invite some people to come in and talk to us. We could invite some of the utilities. I mean, we could look at some different models. David you had a slide thing. I made it through 38 of the 56 slides, and then I nodded off. But they were good. I mean, they talked about all the pluses and minuses and different ways to approach this.
Then let's have that at the next meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, the 56.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, there's some really good points in there in terms of just kind of the nuts and bolts of making it work.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, when I say we need to take time, I think we need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to address it, and I think we need to start the process, because my understanding to amend the tariff is multiple months and state. I think if we can send a clear signal to open the tariff or start the process, I think we need to change it in some form or fashion, even if it's small or tweaking around the edges, or if it's a more fundamental sort of something put in. I really appreciate senior staff has always stressed that we want to make sure that anything we do is not, you know, on the backs of our ratepayers, that we're doing things that benefit the whole community. But I just think too much is happening in Frankfurt, too much growth right now for us just to kind of continue to just be on the sidelines, you know.
Ms. Cuban, oh, sorry.
No.
Okay. One thing I do want to understand what you ask staff to do. I guess we talk about electric only right now, right? Because the water really don't have any room.
From what Travis, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
from what Sharmista told us, and she can't find, that we know of, we can't find any municipal water who's doing anything, right? Was that John?
Yeah, I mean, she could certainly speak to that better than I could, but yeah, I think
it
that's
has such a small margin
right,
that
yeah.
it's not, you know.
Currently, water operation, we really don't even have a cash flow. They use electric cash flow to even do the operation right now. I mean, is a very low margin. I mean, just strictly for pass-through cost business. So when the water project can be 100,000, so can be coming to Berkeley.
I would say there's no really reasoning in the water because what drives the water bill is the sewer bill,
Right.
and that's the city. So we're not going to be addressing that.
That's
If
right.
the city wants to take that on, that's their prerogative, but I think electric is where we have our strength to really
That's right.
focus, so.
Yeah.
Steve?
Absolutely.
I don't know, I'll go on to John, I've lost my train of thought to the daydream doing.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we sat in, you and I spoke with Travis and you know, about some development issues and some other kinds of things. We've had some discussions. You know, I really agree with Jason. I think this is the time is right for us to figure out what it is we can do and how we can do this, while of course, as Jason said, always being mindful of the effect on our ratepayers. But you know, we have always, and you know, KCDC has said, you know, we've always been a good partner in terms of economic development, and I think we've always tried to, when businesses want to relocate here, we are here with them. And you know, we've talked about some people that are locating here, and we have tried to work with them to try to lower their costs, you know, using our existing tariffs and not even having to change our tariffs. So we're offering solutions. We have a lot of smart people on our staff, and I think this is, like Jason said, I think this is the beginning of a very good discussion that's going to probably end up us changing some of our tariffs in some ways to help bolster economic development. So I appreciate the beginning of the conversation.
Well, this was the informational, and what I might suggest is, oh, Steve.
You know,
You're ready.
I couldn't get past the solar. I was thinking of net metering, the net metering policy. You know, that caps how much you can do. There definitely has to be a cap on whatever we do here.
Yes.
But again, my caution is, we say the ratepayers, but you know there are rate increases coming down the road, probably 3 months. And 1 + 1 = 2. More expenses, less revenue, or the same revenue equals a new bill to the ratepayer. And the activity that I hear around for economic development potential requests, it's a lot of money, and it will hit the ratepayer if we satisfy all of them. So whatever we do, if we do anything, it needs to be limited. And the other thing, as far as payback, 5 years, I was telling David, 5 years guaranteed payback in 5 years.
Well, I think Travis made some good points about, I would definitely want that deposit approach. I don't think we're putting money on the front end and hoping for the best. I want someone to take a business approach where they're getting rewarded for filling out their houses.
What they want to do.
Yeah,
Right.
if they like, hey, we want to do this, we're like, great. Well, put your money where your mouth is, and once you show you can do it, great, we'll give it back to you. And Steve, to your approach, I mean, I think we can approach this in a business investment kind of way. I mean, we're showing that like this is going to bring X amount of revenue, and that's how we expand. We can't do it in a willy-nilly kind of way. And then to John, your approach is, I think we need to do this now because this is going to come up, and I'd rather do it on our own time frame than have a project that is almost forcing us to decide this under duress.
Jason, I think of, again, all these analogies in my mind today. Musical chairs. Who gets that revenue? The revenue would not stop in our chair when the music stops. Or we would not have a chair when that music stops. The revenue would be in someone else's.
And when I talk about revenue, I mean direct electric billing and payment and stuff. I mean, it has to be justified against what we're getting back as a corporate entity, not.
Oh, but that would be a long-term venture.
Well, it depends. I mean, some of these large industrial customers, they can have pretty
Well,
high bills.
I'm not really thinking, you're right with industrial.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that's where we have to kind of take it
And I
on
think
case by case.
What I'd suggest is, you know, in the next, you know, weeks, we'll put it on the agenda next month again.
Yeah.
If you've got some ideas for Gary and Travis to price out, to do some more research, and like you said, there's all kinds of triggers. The revenue approach, what we would generate, how many jobs it would bring, occupational property tax, new customers, you know, what's 100 home subdivision bring? What's a 300 employee factory bring in terms of revenue? I mean, it's just, we need to look at that and get a feel on what might be a good policy, because what's an LG&E policy for the city of Louisville is not maybe a good fit for us. It needs to be sized to what this community has.
Well, and that's where I'm going to echo what Steve just said. I mean, when you're doing community development, there's a lot of players, and we need to look at our sliver of the pie. You know, we need to make sure that we are getting protected with our sliver, and if there's a business case in our sliver, we're good.
Yeah.
But if it's like, okay, well, we're really not gonna increase the rates, but we'll bring 100 jobs, we're like, okay, cool, go. Terry, you take that, city, you figure out how to pay for that, because we can't really get involved with that. But if we can go, oh man, this is gonna bring in $500,000 of, revenue a year, well, dang, we can,
Well, I know when
we're not gonna run a 1,000-foot line, we could do more,
When I, worked for the state, we would do deals, and we'd look at how many jobs, then the spinoff. If you have a 300 worker plant, then maybe there's 200 new homes built here, then
That's
another.
fair.
I mean, it
That's fair.
ripples
That's
everywhere
fair.
with more customers, and it can be a big deal before it's over.
Well, and another thing to think about, sorry, this might be a little tangent here, is I know, I heard recently the economic development groups in Lexington were saying, we don't want any new homes. We are now looking at 2 county away bedroom
Yes.
communities for us. And so we happen to be a bedroom community for Lexington now. So, I mean, in some ways, we don't even need to build the company. We just need to go talk to Lexington and go, bring them here, not Georgetown. Like,
Yeah.
we'll take them.
I think that housing study they had, they said that, but Franklin's like 15 to 20 years away from that.
It's been a while since
But the same principle, same
Yeah.
point.
It's been a while since when I worked in Lexington, but at that time, only 50% of the Lexington workforce lived in Fayette County.
I think
Most of
it's-
the people were commuting in.
I think it's even more extreme now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2 counties away, they're starting to commute in.
So,
And then the last thing I want to say is that when any of this conversation we do, and I mean, I'm just echoing what you guys have drilled into my head, is that unfortunately, I think in the community, people see us as the big pot of money. And it's very easy to go, oh, wow, they got a lot of money up there. And I think we need, through every step of this process, to reemphasize where that money's spent, how it's spent, and how it is really leveraged on behalf of the ratepayers.
and
with
we're
what
doing,
we
I think
do.
David put together maybe a year ago, what we're doing basically in kind already in the community, about $1 million.
It was substantial.
Yeah.
It adds up.
So,
Which is huge, I mean,
It's
and we
huge.
ought to be doing that, changing light bulbs, fixing, I mean, that's the things we do, I mean,
Yes.
so.
Mr. Huber, actually, I'm just echo what he just said. With basically, right now, if you look at the overall rate, our electric rate structure, we didn't hike a rate since 2017, but the board approved this year is a 3.9%. What I'm trying to say is we are facing 8% cost increase on the wholesale power, which is that's the majority part of our $60 million cost. We talk about $45 million. When they go 8%, our retail rate only 3.9. There's a gap there. What I'm trying to say is our current retail electric really don't have a lot of room.
Right.
I'm afraid any direction we go, the inflation, the labor costs, the material costs, just like you heard with all the truck, suddenly you talk about 80% increase, a 2-year delivery. All those going to be end up in the base rate.
Yes.
I'm saying is there are a lot of pressure for us to hike rate. I know all you in your heart, you want to looking for stable, lower, maintain the low cost. I'm just saying we do want to have economic. We've been talking about every year. We want a new customer more in our rate base. But same time, when we talk about those projects, can be millions. Just a single project can be 2-3 million. So can be add up very quickly. I'm just saying, when you cost us looking at our policy, we do want to go. Everyone want to support that. But same time, we also balance look at the rate.
I mean, that's such an excellent point because one of the incentives to build here is they're going to look at our electric rate.
Yeah.
They're probably not the top of their head is what deal can I get? It's what's the basically cost of doing business here. So it's gotta make sense to us to want to participate and it be financially feasible without then hurting everybody on the back end by having to raise rates, and then nobody wants to come build here because the rates are too high. So it's a delicate balance.
well, and I think that's ultimately where I'm landing, is that we have to have this conversation.
Yes.
We have to wrangle with all of these, and we have to figure out, are we just tweaking things on the edges, or do we find a way to actually do something sizable that makes sense for our revenues and for our future growth? And I think it's the time's now, because we're being asked by everybody.
Yes.
Frankfurt's growing, you gotta step up. Everyone else is doing it. Of course, we see, maybe that's not true, you know, everyone does it to varying degrees in other parts of the state, but I just think we want to get ahead of this thing because we are going to be forced at some point to like, hey, this project's here, it's millions have invested, what are you guys gonna do? So I'd rather we do it on our own terms.
Well, Travis, if you keep doing your research,
Sure.
You know, keep looking at some other municipals, and then everybody, you know, have ideas, get them to Gary and Travis, let them work through them, share the information, and we'll hit it again next month.
Let me just ask you, how does a tariff though work? Do we have to open it and then we spend months and then closing it again? I mean,
It just basically would be, we would draft a new one, we'd have to have a public hearing, take comments.
It's basically a 3-month process. You know, we get the proposal, we schedule the public hearing, we have the public hearing, and then, you know, so just like we did with the tariffs, so
Yeah.
that's essentially a 3-month process.
Yeah.
So
From
if-
publication to hearing to
if
final.
they have, you know, if there's some ideas, I mean, we could have something by December or January if that's what the board wants to do, so.
Okay. Next item is any informational items, Gary?
No.
Okay, the next one, informational items, new business. Real quick, information, make everybody aware in October, we're gonna have, one board member will need to join by Zoom, so we'll be doing that, but a regular date. For the November and December meetings, those fall during Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so what we've got here is the proposal to move November and December to the 14th and 11th. The 11th is a Monday in December. Gubernatorial Inauguration Day is Tuesday the 12th. There's nothing magic about any of these dates. This was just moving them back 1 week from the normal date. But like I said, those do fall, I think what the November one actually falls in Thanksgiving week, doesn't it?
Yes.
So it would be the Tuesday, the 21st would be our normally scheduled day, and Thanksgiving is that week.
Okay.
So
And then December, that week the regular meeting would flow into that Christmas weekend.
That would be the 19th would be the
Yeah.
regular day.
So it's up to the board. Do you all want to make those changes for November and December, or what's your all's pleasure?
I'm fine with both those changes. I don't have an issue with both those changes. I don't know about anybody else.
Then on item 9.4, this would be an action item if you all want to adopt it. And since this is a regular meeting, we can do this, right, Hans? Have you passed that out to everybody? You got it. I sent you all an email on it, basically, and I'll take the blame for it. When we amended Gary's contract, we previously had that Gary could accumulate annual time. Because Gary has a terrible habit of not using his time. And when he uses his time, he's on his phone the whole day. So this basically, all this amendment does is two things. It incorporates what we previously had, lets Gary accumulate his vacation time that he gets every year without limit, but it adds the proviso in there that if Gary would depart at some point, but he'll be here another 20 years or so, but if he would depart, he is only allowed to be paid the maximum all their employees are paid, the 256 hours. So no matter how many hours, if he had 1,000 hours when he left, he could only get paid 256. But his other time he can have to use if he gets to use it. But if he doesn't use it and he leaves, he gets the 256 hours, which is the maximum we allow any employee. But he does get to keep his vacation time and not lapse it. And under our current system for state employees, if you have vacation time, it rolls to sick time. But under Tier 3 retirement, that really doesn't do you a lot of good at all, because it's not a defined benefit. You're not defined service that way.
So he could take off the last 2 months of his employment. I got what you're saying.
We'd have to approve it. We'd say no, you're not.
He's like, I'm on vacation. See you guys.
But that's what this does. But like I said, we had it before, didn't we, Hans? We had it in the contract before, but we didn't put this provision in the current one, right?
That's correct.
But the 256 is new, the cap, the limit on how much he could cash out.
The 256 is consistent with what all the other
FPB employees are given.
Yeah.
Okay.
accumulate unlimited time.
But he can only collect on 256 on retirement. Or retire, right, or leave, whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I checked on tax stuff with it.
Yeah.
As long as you don't, as long as you collect when you leave, there's no
Yeah,
tax.
then you,
No,
right,
no before
right.
and after questions.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, Ferrer, I would make a motion to approve the amendment to the general manager's contract as stated in the discussion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion's adopted.
Okay.
And don't be submitting no leaf slip. Next item is request to go into closed session. John?
We've already, the community solar we already did earlier. That's the same thing? Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I would request permission to call a closed session pursuant to KRS 61810-1C to discuss pending or proposed litigation regarding collection matter, advertising matter, and a breach of contract matter, and also pursuant to 61810-1G to discuss a specific proposal that if openly discussed would jeopardize the siting, retention, or expansion or upgrading of a business. Yes.
Pardon?
Can I add 61.101C to discuss an employment matter, a cost recovery matter as well?
Okay.
Okay. So we have that motion.
I
Do
will
we have
make
a
that
second?
motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Do we need to go upstairs or stay here? How many people do we need in the meeting besides the board and you and Gary?
At different points in the meeting, like to have Michelle, Brandon, and Brian. And I think that's all we need for the closed session. So
Okay.
I hate to say everybody else could go home, but I want to.
Okay.
You know,
We'll just do it here.
Hate to break that news to everybody.
You okay with just staying here?
Sure.
If everybody except those three people would leave. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes. second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor of coming out of closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a couple of matters that we're going to need to direct staff. On item 1, as was discussed in the closed session, and on item 4, as discussed in the closed session, we'd like to direct the staff to proceed as directed in the closed session.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's adopted. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of going home, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed to going home,